I love hearing that out of people. But to kind of ask somebody, it's like, yo, so it was like shit fucked up at home, and that's why you like hardcore. It's like I don't want to do that.
What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. I think the idea that kind of sparked this podcast specifically, this interview, was not only someone that was constantly on my radar, someone that, you know, has a little bit of a meeting of the minds aspect to this episode, but a lot of people were very, very excited when I had Colin Young on. Obviously from God's Hate, but we talked a lot about hard lore and that kind of stuff. So I think with the success of that, I wanted to do more hardcore podcast crossover. And, you know, second in command, I think, when it comes to hardcore podcasting is today's guest. So without further ado, we have Ace of Mutually Assured Destruction, as well as Form of Passion. Dude, thank you for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me. Like, shout out to Colin. He and Bo are doing really for year one, extremely solid work with their camp. So that's cool.
Yeah, I was listening to their 2022 recap, and it was like, oh shit, that show like started not even 6 months ago.
Yeah, that's why it's. I mean, one thing I'll say about Colin in general, Bo to an extent as well, but really Colin is that like most anything he touches ends up like has a bit of a Midas touch quality. It seems to be able to traverse waters very easily, whereas some people don't. He kind of knows the right things to do with everything, be it a band or be it, you know, like with kind of some other endeavor. So, you know, they've done well. It's cool.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously had many years of other bands and other hardcore things to, you know, do the don'ts of all those and learn those lessons along the way. But definitely. Obviously this is not a Colin episode. This is an Ace episode. But dude, I'm really excited. You know, not only did Mutually Assured Destruction put out a really badass record this year, that I think that there's a lot to talk about. And I've also been a huge fan of Forum for a long time. But before we talk about hardcore, we got to check some bevs for the episode.
Okay,
so,
let's check them.
What do you got?
So right now I'm working on doing like a particular workout regimen, as a lot of people will kind of kind of coop what they've been doing at the beginning of the year, where it's like one of the aspects of it is that they want you to drink a gallon of water a day, and like log it and everything. So I've got a 64-ounce thing of water right here that I'm going to try to crush. I got probably like a half gallon to go the rest of the day. So if I finish this, I'll be good to go. Not that exciting, but you know, it's an important essence of life. It's an important beverage.
Do you need that straw to get through that gallon?
No, I don't need it, but it's like, you know, I'm not anti, you know, it's like, this is a reusable straw. So it's like, but so I'm not like anti straw, you know, kind of thing. I mean, I guess I could not have it, but you know what? The straw helps. It helps it go by faster.
Yeah. I'm doing something similar, not for similar reasons, but similar bevs. I'm just drinking an AHA sparkling.
Oh yeah, an AHA. Nice.
The orange and grapefruit. You know, as you can probably see, there's a plethora of Liquid Death sitting behind me.
Oh yeah, you got hell of Liquid Death in there.
Yeah.
God no.
It's kind of like there is hundreds of cases that they graciously send to me, but I have to kind of like, our fridge is so small that I can only have a case at a time. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should do a Liquid Death for Ace's episode. But then I was like, oh, I'm out of cold Liquid Death, and I don't want to.
Brother, you are gonna. It's gonna be a while before you're finished with those. Is what I'm looking at right here.
with all the ones that I gave out from the previous pallet that was sent, it was still like almost a year's supply. And it's kind of like you hear that.
Shout out to Liquid Death for doing that, man. Damn.
It's like you hear that stuff like a year's supply, but I actually kind of understand it now.
Yeah. God. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so like, in regards to like them like sending you stuff, I don't know if you're allowed to say this, but what is your preferred seltzer?
So on record, not sponsored by Liquid Death, but in my eyes, and I'm sure that you could probably appreciate this from a podcast standpoint, there is no other drink in the sparkling water category that fits that. So they are worth the chase of like the shameless promo, constantly asking them and then constantly being let down, being like, and it's not that they're not appreciative of, all that kind of stuff. It's just that they are so protective of their brand, and rightly so. Like the actual stuff that they're pushing is like the Tony Hawk Blood skateboard collab with Wiz Khalifa, Absolutely. So it's like that's way up here, and I'm like way at the bottom of the list. But I don't want any money from them. I just want free shit.
Your respect, I would say I do like Liquid Death a lot. I like the lime flavor. Mm-hmm. I had that for the first time this past year. In regards to in regards to seltzer, there's a flavor of seltzer that I believe is discontinued from a grocery store chain called Wegmans. I don't know if they have that in Canada. No. But they're big. They're large. Okay. They're like nice and large. So they had one that was a lime mint flavor of just Wegmans brand seltzer, but I don't think they make it anymore. Okay. And I like a mint drink in general. It doesn't really matter what it is. I like a mint drink.
Do you fuck with kombucha?
I don't really reach for it that much. But if there's a mint kombucha out there, I wouldn't be like opposed to trying it.
Yes, there's I think it's definitely an Alberta company. It's called True Booch, and they have a mojito mint kombucha.
So I like shit like that. Yes. I'll write that down and look that up. Yeah. Okay, I'm down. Yes. I'll try it.
yeah. But all good Bev chats aside, cheers to you, Ace. Really excited.
Cheers to you, sir. Cheers, sir. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. What's the dream form of passion Bev sponsor?
Dream form of passion Bev sponsor. Okay. Right now it is Ghost, which is an energy drink company. It's kind of like a Bang or like a Rain or something like that. Mm-hmm. You generally see them in like gyms or like fitness, type locations, but all their flavors are like candy. So it's like red Sour Patch Kid, like watermelon Warheads flavor. I love sugar, and I'm trying to chill on that. So and they're like sugar free. I'm sure there's a ton of preservative shit in there, or whatever. I'm sure it's not good for you, or whatever. But I'm rocking with Ghost. That will be a good one. Maybe I should reach out and see.
Yeah.
But damn, what else? There's a soda that's only in the South called Cheerwine.
Someone checked that on the show just a couple weeks ago.
Yep, Cheerwine is bomb as hell. I was, as I was in North Carolina over the holiday, that's where it comes out of. Cool. It's in Virginia too, but I saw a bottle in a vending machine, and I was like, oh, just because I gotta hit it. I gotta hit that one. So that would be another.
Okay. So yeah, 2 runner-ups. I feel like the Ghost energy drink, drinking too many of those is it's kind of like a subtle nod. Like you drink too many of these, you might become a ghost.
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, it's I'll be pounding one while I'm running, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really getting through this run right now.
I feel my soul just slightly ahead of my body.
I'm not even tired. I could just keep doing this. So it's a good one. It's a good one.
So Ace, I think this is kind of like a two-parter podcast as far as like hitting on the form stuff as well as the music stuff. But
Sure. Yeah.
obviously, there's tons of overlap there.
Definitely.
But any new guest that comes here on the show, I always like to kind of do a little bit of context about how they just even discovered hardcore and got into this whole thing. And I
Sure.
know this is flash forwarding ahead, but I know your style of interview is a little like it's like take me to the day you were conceived to this moment
Yes,
that
it
we're
is.
on the
Yes.
podcast.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yes.
whether you want to do that whole
No.
mantra or like more the Cole's Notes version, whatever
We we
floats your
ain't
boat.
gotta we ain't gotta start at my birthday. It's fine. I can tell you kind of how I got into hardcore. And we'll go from there.
Yes.
I had a friend when I was in, like, I guess, well, he was a lifelong friend. We've been friends since we were born. Like our parents were friends. He started getting into like grunge and like punk music when he was like 14 or so. I think he was like a year older than me. And he like wanted to make a band. I had recently started playing bass and like was, I liked heavy music. I was listening to like metal. Like I liked Metallica, and like Iron Maiden and like stuff like that when I was like in middle school. Um and I guess at the time, like that year's like I was like learning like Queens of the Stone Age songs at like bass, like my bass teacher sessions.
Mm.
And he was like, yo, like, do you want to play? And he was into punk and he was like, you want to play in a punk band with me? And I was like, no, like, I don't like that type of music. And I was like, I think it's too simple. At the time, I was really into like solos and like virtuosity.
Sure.
And but I was like, but the idea of playing in a band sounds cool. So yeah, sure, I'll just do it. And kind of through that, I started to kind of like embrace punk music. And then he would like, he would show me, he took me to my first show, which was a hardcore show, and I hated it. And he took me to see Agent Orange, and I agreed to go because they were in the Tony Hawk video game.
Okay.
So Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, Agent Orange is on the soundtrack, and I was like, well, I know what that is, and I like that song Bloodstains, so I'll go. Um, and it was only a 3-band show. The 2 openers were a band called Direct Control, which would later like that band kind of like the drummer in that blossomed into a lot of things. He was in this band Government Warning, Wasted Time. I believe he was also in the Canadian band Career Suicide. And like a ton of other stuff. Opened up a record store, had his own record label, had his own festival. That dude Brandon Farrell was like an important kind of like entity for me when I was younger.
Sure.
But
Solely just because of how much he was doing, or just like for other
well,
reasons?
here's the thing. At the time, I see this band. I'm 15, and I think it sucks. I'm like, oh, they play too fast. I don't understand what they're saying.
Right.
Like I was into punk at the time, but I was only into like 77 style, like
Sure.
only like Sex Pistols, only The Damned, only Johnny Thunders, and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So hardcore, I was like, I was like, this is like too much. I didn't like the people or whatever, like either. And but the thing is, like, it's like somewhere along the way, like I got shown like Dead Kennedys, by like my punk friends. I got shown like Bad Brains. I heard them on a Punkorama, and I was like, well, wait a second. I think I'm rocking with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so my trajectory was very linear. It was very like I started with punk, I got into US 80s hardcore, as well as like oi when I was like in like high school, and then kind of moved towards like 80s, like late 80s, like straight edge music, like being into like Youth of Today and Gorilla Biscuits and stuff like that, and then kind of like worked my way up. My musical journey of taste was super linear. But hardcore has always been cracking in Richmond. So there was there was a lot of opportunities to go to shows, but the scenes were very divided. And by today's standards, it's like kind of crazy to think about. Like there was like a street punk scene, but they were not the same as the hardcore punk scene. And they like they like had friction. They didn't really like get along, and both of those are completely different than the hardcore scene,
Oh,
and
okay.
all like absolutely different pockets of people and vibe. But Richmond is a college town, and there's a lot of young people, and because it's cheap, there's a lot of like easy places to access in regards to playing. So like, there would be like a show like every weekend or like more than once a week. And but it would just be different worlds. Only years later did they start to kind of like cross over into one another a little bit more.
Hmm.
I mean, this is to say that like it's like in a city of 200,000 people, like not a lot of people at all. There were multiple like hardcore and punk festivals that had absolutely nothing to do with one another when I was like a high schooler. You'd go to one and see like there'd be like 500 whatever people at it, and then you go to United Blood and the crossover would be like maybe like 20 to 30 people,
Wow.
completely different,
Damn.
completely different.
Hmm.
Like the lines were super drawn. And I started out on the more the punk side of stuff.
Sure.
There's a record label called No Way Records. That was that guy Brandon that was in it that you mentioned there, or that you asked about. Um, he was cool to me. When I was like first coming around, and it was a tough scene to crack into in general. Like Richmond is a very aggressive town, and it was like more so then, and not really like the most like you're new and people are like, "Hey, buddy, like nice to meet you." It was kind of like, "Hey, fuck you, dude. Like you're here and you're new. We don't care. Like you don't know anybody. You suck. Kind of
Mm.
thing." It's not as bad now, but at the time it was like there was an aspect of me coming around that was very like, I'm gonna show people that they can't stop me from being here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other details to it, but that's the kind of like the long and the short of it.
Sure.
Uh, so yeah, my journey started there and was a very linear one in regards to my research, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah, I think like something that's interesting to me, and I always love asking this question, is that I get there's a lot of similarities to a lot of other guests that come on, but I think there's also a lot of uniqueness, and like it's very, I've heard it so many times where someone's like, I heard this breakdown and my brain exploded. I'm like, what do you mean? And there's you're not the only person, but there's been plenty of other people that have come on this podcast. Like, I heard these arguably legendary acts that I love today, but at the time I was like, nope, not for me. And
Not
even
into
going to
it.
shows, it wasn't like I felt the energy in the room and this. And I think that is interesting to put out there because it kind of shows that everyone's journey into it is unique, and it doesn't need to be all like roses and the magical
Oh no, it's
given that
dude.
scenario.
I literally, bro, to be completely honest with you, and like I'm like fine with these people now, at like many many years later. I mean, I was a punk guy, and kind of how I got into hardcore, bro. To be real, was I was fighting hardcore kids at like other like events, like around town and stuff. Um, and I basically kind of was like, oh well, like what's the kind of shit that they're into? I'm gonna start showing up to those shows, and like they're not gonna fucking stop me, kind of thing. Because it's
Mm.
like, yo, Richmond is like um, especially in the 2000s and like more so in the 90s, just kind of a hard, like kind of like a harsh place. Like per capita, not a big place, but it was like number 3 for murders in America.
Hmm.
In the 90s, it was like, so like you'd be going around different parts of town, and like like you kind of have them to kind of keep your head on a swivel
Right.
a little bit, and like I had like pissed off kind of like the hardcore kids in Richmond that were like kind of my age, and we would like get into it a little bit with like one another, but I just kind of kept coming around, and like eventually like those dudes, like a lot of them kind of phased out and like just stopped coming around in general, and I stuck around. So really, if indignance is a word, just being indignant was like the kind of the reason I started showing up to hardcore shows, and then I ended up like valuing like a lot of like I ended up loving the music, but I also ended up valuing like like ideas of like perseverance. I was already living as a straight edge person before I knew what straight edge was.
Mhm.
I just the idea in my head of like I wasn't into the idea of like doing drugs or drinking and stuff like that. And then I kind of found out that there was like a whole world of that, especially in Richmond, where straight edge at the time was very big.
Mm.
And and I was like, oh, well, this is kind of already, this is like around me or whatever. This is kind of already how I'm living. So I like kind of like fell into that. I did have a moment like you talked about though. I did have a moment where like I've been into like punk hardcore. I mean like hardcore punk style stuff that was around. I go to a Down to Nothing show on my 18th birthday. It's Down to Nothing. Um, this band Meltdown, and then like early Trash Talk and a little band called Trapped Under Ice opened.
You might have
And
heard them.
maybe
Yeah.
It's 2007 May 20th. And it's in a coffee shop. DTN play. They're like we're playing a new one, and they play this song that's on the most that came out that summer after My Disguise. And the breakdown in that did like I watched the mayhem in the room happen, and I was like, I was absolutely hooked from just seeing that and like the reaction to that and just the absolute carnage that was occurring. I was like, oh, I gotta be into this. This is like what I'm into now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and from there I just, I was already in bands and stuff like that, but I started gearing more towards hardcore at that point.
Yeah, and the other point that I wanted to bring up off of some of the things that you were saying was like, it was like finding out about hardcore. You were talking about like learning about perseverance and things like that. But if inarguably you were already kind of doing that with like other people who might be giving you a hard time or you're fighting them and you're like, nope, well,
Yeah.
I'm going to exist here. And hardcore 2022, 2023 is like still has that element of like people that can talk a lot about the scene, but you never see them in the room. And I think
that
that
happens so much these days.
yes. But I do think that is something for any kid to like to take it on that shoulder to like, if you want to be a part of this, being in the room, flying out to fest, like doing that kind of shit speaks more than, any amount of podcasts that you or I could do.
Oh,
Like,
I mean, dog, it's like I've talked about this with my bro Lee. And it's like, yo, the best aspect of hardcore is being in the room experiencing a live hardcore show. It's like listening to the records at home is cool, but it's like, dude, like watching a video of a show will never be the same as being there. It is more important for you to be there. Like if someone was like, would you rather like a bunch of people be in the room to see a band you're in, or would you rather like, I don't know, like hundreds of thousands of views on like a YouTube video your band playing? I'm like, bro, I want people in the room.
right.
Like, I don't care if there's like a ton of people like watching something online. It's like and that's where when you're at home watching a video or something or what have you, you're not being a part of the community. When you're there, you're with like-minded people. You're with people of the same breed as you, like people that speak in the same language, so to speak. That's important because the thing that makes hardcore different than the rest of the world and like hardcore punk or metal and stuff is community. Is like is finding like a common ground. I mean, hardcore is one of the only places that you can be in the room, like maybe more so in days of yore than now, but you can be in the room with somebody who's like a felon and somebody who's like a Harvard graduate, and they're both there for the same reason.
Yes.
And like that doesn't really fucking happen, like in a lot of stuff. So
right.
That's kind of the community of being in the room, like you talk about. I think that's a very important aspect.
Yeah. That's beautifully painted as far as the stark differences there. But there's the other aspects too, where realizing that that community goes outside of there's obviously the first layer of the hardcore onion, which is your local scene, but then it's like getting to connect with people in other scenes in other countries, and then you're like keeping up with those people.
You're
And
part of kind of the worldwide, kind of network,
mhm.
and that's easier to do than ever these days. And it is cool. It's like you can kind of like with that you can kind of be a person into hardcore, or punk or metal or whatever, and you can like go to a city you haven't been to, but you may have connected with some people already, and you got some built-in people that like you already like kind of know
Right.
or acquainted with, and just because you like the same type of music, and
Yeah.
that's cool. That's a beautiful thing.
And arguably, like, even if you had no like connections and you were like, I went to a hardcore show. Um, I flew in because my parents have a place in Arizona, and
Oh yeah.
I flew in early for a show.
Mhm.
Um, and like, got myself there. No, no one there, and
Yep.
I was like, well, I'm gonna just talk to someone whose band shirt that I like, and then I have friends that I still connect with on Instagram and
Bingo,
Facebook,
dude.
and that's
Just
all
that
it is.
easy.
Yeah,
That's all it is, dude.
yeah,
That's all it is.
yeah.
I saw somebody at the theater the other day that had like a 200 stab wound shirt on, and I was just like, "Yo, like nice, like nice shirt, whatever." They looked at me kind of weird, but still, I was like dressed like hella normal, so I think that they were like, "Who the fuck is this?"
Yeah,
Like,
you're like, you don't even,
but,
you probably can't
yeah,
even spell sanguisugabog.
yeah, exactly, yeah, So it was
Yeah.
like, it's like, but still, it's like that, someone says something, it's like, "Oh, cool." Legit, the other day, I go to this archery range near my house, um, and I like walked up, and this like the guy like saw my corrosion conformity shirt and was like, "Yo, man, sick shirt. They rock. You can just shoot for free today." And I was like, "Oh, fuck yeah!" Like here we. So it's just like the helping one another when you kind of like kind of like have like the secret handshake, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So we've broken down some of like the lore of just like finding out about, the
Yep.
scene and going to these different things.
Mhm.
Was playing bass like you mentioned you started playing bass, but was it more like I have to because like my parents want me to do some kind of like musical thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Literally, my dad was like, "You gotta learn to play an instrument." And
Mm.
I was like, "Well, bass only has 4 strings, so that seems easy." Because here's the deal. I'm either like really not lazy or I'm like really lazy. It's like not really like a lot of middle ground with me. And
Mhm.
so I was like, yeah, this like guitar has too many strings. I probably have to do too much for that. If I had to play an instrument, I'm gonna pick the easiest one. So I picked that.
And then you
And
start playing hardcore, and then realistically, it's just the top string, so
yeah, exactly.
it goes less
So
and less.
like, well, it's the thing is I started playing metal, like Metallica
Mhm.
mainly. And I like really liked doing that. And like yeah, then I got started like, like from there was playing punk. So like it got dumbed down a lot. And but to be real, I never really got much better at bass than I was when I was in like high school. And I about I don't know, 3 or 4 years into being in bands, I just moved over to vocals. And
Mm.
I never really no, that's not true. I was gonna say I never really looked back, but no, there was one there's 2 other bands that I played bass in, 3 now that I think about it. But bro, I'm not good at bass. So it's like the fact that I was playing bass in anything was like kind of like y'all could just get somebody better than this. I don't but you
Honestly,
know,
I think if you pulled the entire hardcore scene, I think 50%, I think over 50% actually would say they are not good at bass
yeah,
of
I
all
mean,
bass players.
like dog, I mean, here's the deal. Yo, I like think about it and I'm like, this is the unfortunate thing because I would love to be able to like sit at home and kind of like write music as good as like my peers.
Sure.
And I can kind of like when I'm like with somebody else, but by myself, like I just don't got the chops that like I feel like my ability stopped in high school and all my other friends playing music, like they kept going. I just didn't keep practicing.
Mm.
So sometimes like I still have one of my basses. I like think about like like picking it back up and like trying to get like better at it in my like my free time or whatever, and I'll probably do that at some point. maybe I'll like do it for like a Doom project or something, so it's like easy. I'm just playing like like not crazy stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But maybe.
yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, yes, my dad made me learn an instrument, and I'm pretty sure that was like his biggest his biggest regret in life. Because then I like, as I'm like an obsessive person, I got obsessed with hardcore
Right.
and metal and punk and stuff. So it was uh like that's like all I kind of care about even still. So I'm sure he would rather see me do something like more career oriented, but no, I like doing this. So
No, I think it played out as it should. So, so making that shift, like, to, were you doing vocals solely because it was like, well, no one else wants to step up to the plate to do that, or was there like a thing in you where you're like, I think I should be the one rocking the mic?
kind of okay. So I was in a band. So this is my band journey. I was in a band in high school called the Reserve. That was your typical kind of high school punk band, and that it couldn't decide what type of band it like wanted to be.
Sure.
What we started out as was like the guy who got, his name was JT, who got me into punk music, was a big Social Distortion fan.
Mm,
And so it was going to be kind of like that. And I didn't really care about Social Distortion, but I just wanted, like I said earlier, I wanted to play in a band. So we like, the thing is though, bless JT's heart, he was not a good singer. Like, he sounded like honestly pretty bad, but could play guitar well. And as we kind of collectively like got a little more into hardcore and stuff, started like making the songs a little faster. I discovered that I could sing, um, kind of akin to the band that I do now.
hmm.
And just by singing like Danzig and Misfit songs in my car. And so I was like, well, what if I was playing bass, but I was like, what if I sang a song? Like, and he was like, okay, like that's cool. So I, sang one song, and it ended up kind of being like that high school band's like hit, you know? So we like I started singing more and more songs. And then eventually, because like a lot of our friends are getting into hardcore, and just like the energy of like not being behind an instrument, uh kind of like, it's like, yo, if you want kids to be moving around and like having fun and stuff like that, it's like better to have somebody kind of like out there.
Mhm.
We kind of had like shifted to like doing more like, definitely like more of just like a hardcore punk band at like towards the end of that band's duration. It was around for kind of a while. It was around for like 5 years.
Hmm.
Um I became just front person. And it just like, maybe it was an ego thing. Maybe I was like, I want to be, out there, or whatever. I don't really know. But I think I was also like really like getting into like Black Flag, and I've been reading so much about Rollins, and like I wanted to do that.
Right.
And so it was not like somebody was like step up to the plate. It was more just kind of like I graduated, like we added somebody else to play bass, and I graduated to kind of being, front person.
Yeah. But there was also
Um
like things where you put out a song and then you're like, "Oh, other people like this." And it wasn't just like came out of nowhere being like, "Here's a full album with my vocals on it." So,
Yeah, no, well, the issue, I mean, here's the thing. Well, the issue was that when we were like more of a capital P punk band, on my songs, I would be like singing. But then as we got faster, I like started doing a more harsh vocal, like
mm,
or like a more like aggressive vocal. So I stopped the singing thing. I like didn't return to that until MAD. So I like, because when MAD came out, friends of mine were like, I just didn't know you sang like that.
mhm.
And I was like, oh yeah, I did that when I was like in high school. We ended up being like more of like I mean, the Reserve was never good, but I guess what we were going for towards our later time period was like Suicidal Tendencies, like first record.
Mhm.
Um just like kind of like California early 80s punk, like hardcore punk and like stuff like that, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, that I did that. I did that band until I was like into college. I think my freshman year was like the last year we were a band.
Mm. Yeah. So, and that's a classic thing where like you look at someone like fucking why am I blanking on his name? Molly from Gridiron. So
Oh
many
yeah,
people when that band
precisely.
started were like, I didn't know you played drums. He's like, I was a drummer before I was doing vocals
Forever
in
agitator.
anybody.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like that cat was like drumming for. That's what I always knew him as.
Mhm.
You know. But yeah, and then it's interesting. It's interesting how that kind of thing happens. I'm sure there's people that listen to my band now or listen to Forum that like have, other than maybe like when I've mentioned it on Forum, have like no idea about like when I was like in previous, like when I was in Breakaway or something.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like I think entry point is a part of it. You know. So, but yeah, I'm sure like Mully, like I mean, like, well, shit. Now I think about it, he was doing drums for a year of the knife in the beginning too.
Oh yeah.
Um, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, because I forgot they had a different singer originally. So yeah, I mean that there's a prime example of that right there.
That man's just moved around.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Shout out to Molly.
Shut him out.
Let's use that as the transition point because you brought up Mad a couple times.
Sure.
Tell me about the origin of that project, and then we'll kind of transition to the latest record.
Okay. So I had done a band called Breakaway for about 8 years. Started in 2010 and ended very early 2019. Uh, and I'll give you like a little jump off point for later too.
Sure.
I thought I was like kind of done with bands. I thought I was like not gonna do bands anymore. I was in a very short-lived thing at the time called Neuromancer that only played like 3 shows. That was an amalgamation of people from this band Dead and Dreaming, two guys from Downfall, Killing Pace, like that kind of unit, and then this dude Ross, who was in a Midwest band back in the day called Out of Time, and is in a Richmond band called Earth to Heaven. It's short lived. It didn't really last very long. But I kind of thought I was like, as that kind of fizzled, I was like, all right, I've been doing this for a long time. Like, since I was like 14, 15. I think I was like about to turn like 30. I was like, maybe I'm done, you know. And somewhere in there, even before Breakaway broke up, I had done a Misfits cover set, 2 Misfits cover sets for Halloween. And that's people kind of came out of the woodwork being like, you sing. And I'm like, well, yeah.
Thanks for telling me.
They're like, why don't you do that? And I was like, I wouldn't want to do a band that sounds like the Misfits, but I would be maybe down to try something like Life of Agony or like Only Living Witness or Corrosion of Conformity. So at the last Breakaway show, I saw this guy who was in this band called Holy Land back in the day. I had not seen him in years. And I knew him to kind of be more of an electronic music guy like these days. I saw him, his name's Tyler, and I was like, oh, cool to see you. It's like sick you're here, whatever. And I was hanging out with this girl that like knew both of us like maybe like a week or so later. And she was like, oh, it was cool that he was there, like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about, she's like, I think the conversation came up. She's like, are you going to do another band? And I was like, I don't know, probably not. And I think the only thing that I had on my mind was like, maybe because I'm not doing bands anymore, I'll do a podcast. So that kind of set the wheels in motion for Form to kind of start a few months later. But she was like, oh, you saw Tyler at that show. Like, have you ever thought about doing a band with him? And this is kind of weird for this person to say because she is like, has been around hardcore forever, but is like normie as hell.
Sure.
So for the fact that she kind of picked this guy who was in like a very musical band in the past that would be perfect for that kind of project, it was kind of interesting because that she kind of recommended him. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So I hit dude up and I hit up Groder, who used to be in Fire and Ice, Down to Nothing, Embrace War. Just like an old Richmond scene veteran, the guy who crafted most of the records around there that kind of like put the city on the map.
Right.
And DTN, he hadn't been in DTN in years. Fire and Ice wasn't really a band anymore, and Bryce sort of didn't play that much. So I was like, "Yo, you got time to do this?" And he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm down to like try it out," which meant a lot to me because he was playing music that got me kind of into the genre.
Sure.
And I hit up a dude that was in Breakaway, and my homie JD had just graduated college. And I was looking for people that were talented but had free time. And also people that were better. I picked specifically people that are way better at music than I am because I knew the band was going to be like musical.
Right.
And yeah, so we started around the same time period that Forum started. We started working on a demo, and like May of 2019, and then that came out in July of 2019, like a 3-song demo, and like it got pressed to vinyl pretty quickly. Vinyl Conflict, a record store in town, did it. I don't really know how that came to be. I guess we released it online really fast, and like very fast. He was like, "Let me do like 300, like 7 inches." And so the ball was rolling pretty nicely. Our first show was not in Richmond. I think we dropped a demo before we had a first show even scheduled. Our first show was the This Is Hardcore pre-show. And I just been friends with Joe from doing Breakaway stuff forever.
Yeah.
Breakaway played a couple of This Is Hardcores, and Joe, had like hooked Breakaway up with great shows in Philly. And so, yeah, that was our first gig, and it was fun. An interesting thing about MAD, that was in 2019. So like lockdown happens like next year. We have not played 30 shows. We haven't played that. Breakaway. MAD has not played that many gigs. It's
That's
just
mad.
I know. Yeah, it's interesting. As I keep a ledger. I keep a ledger of like, this is me being super analytical. I keep a ledger of what show, like where it is we played, what bands played, how many people came, and just I just see like growth, or like it's like kind of like a journal. Like remind myself of cool shit we've done.
Yeah. And
now I think we're at like 29. So I'll talk about them later, but some upcoming shows at the beginning of 2023 will be, we'll get over that 30 mark. But
yeah. Well, I want to keep talking about this, but you've sparked an idea of like a interesting exercise that I want to see if we can workshop here.
Sure.
How many shows a year should an active band in hardcore be doing?
This is a great question. I think it really depends on the band, to be honest. Because like let's take a look at some heavy hitters. God's Hate. They probably play,
I think, single digits potentially.
Oh, there's no way it's over 10.
Yes.
Like 5, maybe 6. I'm trying
to recount the
let me think.
The weekend shows where it's like, a Sunday Saturday scenario.
Sunday. I mean, that's kind of what all MAD does too, but like so they've probably played less than single digits. Never Ending Game. Probably less than single digits. I wouldn't be surprised if Gridiron is less than single digits.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. You look at these bands that have a lot of heat behind them for their records. And that model is not gonna work for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome if it does. You've cracked the code, because now you don't gotta do as much to get as much.
Right.
But it's not gonna be that way for everyone.
But at the same time, all of those bands that you said, if they were touring 300 days of the year, they would be astronomically ginormous.
Oh, they'd be.
So nothing takes away from the actual point of getting out there. But I think you and I are in that point where it's like, it's kind of sick to drop a record and not have to tour super heavily on it.
Not tour super heavy, but I think what everybody should do is this: if you drop a record, play off it, like schedule shit. Don't just like let it sit there or whatever.
Right.
But there are some bands that I think have made themselves by getting out there more.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with Andrew from Combust yesterday, where I was like, I feel like you guys dropped your record in March. And like people talked about it, but then like 2 months later, I started seeing more people talking about it. And he was like, that makes sense. Because he's like, I think we went to Europe around then and then immediately hit a full US like right after. Right. And there's an example of getting out there and pumping yourself up. I think it really just depends like on what the chemical makeup of your band is. Like some people can just play like a few times a year and it's fine. I remember like No Tolerance, they barely played like, throughout like there's a ton of examples of this. That's just the first one that comes to mind. Rival Mob too. They never went on like a tour or anything like that. There's always been bands throughout the ages that, kind of do this. And then there are bands that like are just like constantly out there. Like
Scowl, Gel.
Oh, like Gel has made themselves who they are by playing all the time. They play all the time.
Yeah,
they play all the time. Scowl too. Okay, Dying Wish, always out there. A Year of the Knife, like like always out there. Like I can think of the bands that I constantly see on the move, and I think it definitely does something for them.
Right.
So my answer to that, as long-winded as I am, is I think it just kind of depends on the recipe. I think it just kind of depends on, what kind, like what kind of band you are and what you want for yourself. It's like, what's your benchmark on like, on being hot. I put a benchmark for myself where I'm like, with my band, I want to play at least a show a month on average. So it's like there might be a couple months where we don't play anything, but then there'll be a month where we play like 4.
Sure.
So it's like that's for me and like what I can do with my life, my job, and like everybody else's job and their responsibilities and other bands. That's kind of where where I'm at. Yeah. I think honestly the band that has it the best is Mind Force. I think that they play just the right amount of stuff. And like they don't play like 5 times a year. They're probably playing like 20.
Yeah.
And I think that they play like the right stuff and it goes well. And then, when I don't think they've done it. I think they've played Europe, but not in like a tour format. I have to ask Mike about that. I'm interested in that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, these days is different, man. Like it's like you kind of used to have to kind of get out there more. But to be real with you, right out of college, I had to immediately start working. I like didn't have any like I didn't have any savings. My parents were like helping me out or anything. I was beefing with them at the time, so they kicked me out of both their houses. So I like immediately had to start working. But that was also when like Breakaway started. So the model that I always had was like can only do weekends, can only do festivals. Like I think the longest thing we ever did was like 11 days in Europe. And I did it to where it was like, okay, if we start on like a Friday and come back on like a Sunday or something, or like right in there, right. I only have to take like a week off of work, So I've always had to like kind of do that model. What's funny is that when I was doing that model, all my friends were doing full USs. And then now that model is like a ton of bands model.
Right.
I think an aspect of that is this. I think that people in the hardcore are older now. And when you're older, you have more responsibilities. Yes. Like I think when I was younger, like all my friends were in college. Like I had gotten out of college and all my friends were like 4 years younger. The people that would go on to be in like Candy and this dude Ian I used to chill with a lot, who like does all the Turnstiles music videos now. And some of my friends that would like go on to join Brace War and stuff like that. And they were all like in bands that were like on the road a lot because they were younger and they could do it during summer or during a certain break. Like those guys were in this band like Tough Luck that played like out a bunch. They would go on to be in that band Malfunction. You know, and just they were constantly out. My band was the weird one where it was like, oh no, we play like United Blood and like this is hardcore and stuff and like Sound of Fury and like, you know, whatever, but like and just random shit in between. But that's what a lot of bands do now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like I think by the time that your episode comes out, it will be just past my 30th birthday.
Yeah.
It's funny. As soon as I got into hardcore, it was like FYA is always the weekend either of my birthday or just before.
Oh yeah,
or just
bro.
after. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, are you going?
I'm not, unfortunately.
Oh, dude, that's hella far from you. Like,
yes.
I don't expect you.
It's like literally on the opposite.
That is the opposite side of the fucking continent from you at every degree.
Yeah. Not to say that it's not crossed my mind many a times, and especially like I'm turning
really good lineup this year.
Yes.
So
yeah, it's a little bit of a dance of like. I have to just buy tickets to a fest and then figure out the travel logistic later on. But all that aside, like, yeah, like there's been a lot as Scoped has grown, as like my own specific projects have grown, where it's like, man, fuck, like balancing shit is like a task and a half. And
tough, man.
And I think like I want bands who are in their early 20s that can still live at home, that can still do all this stuff, to just go out and do that shit.
Do it. Like I didn't, and I wish I could have. So if you're listening to this and you're like right there, you're in a band, whatever. Oh man, just go out and do it. Like, you know, like it's if you got the space kind of in your life, it's just, there's nothing more fun than going out with your friends and playing music. Mm-hmm. So do that shit for sure.
Right. Yeah, and there's definitely parts of me where it's like when I think about any project of mine doing a full US, I would like to do that once. But I honestly think by the end of it, I would be like, okay, glad I got that off the bucket list. But you know,
I've never done it. I've never. There's a time zone in the United States that I've never played. I've never played the Mountain Time Zone. It's always been like
that's my time zone, dude.
There you go. It's always been either fly out to West, to like, you know, kind of like the West Coast for either like I think like at the time it would have been like Rainfest and then like just do California weekends and stuff like that, or it's been the other half of the US and Canada for that matter. Mm. You know, like Montreal, Toronto, like I played Gatineau one time at a festival, Heartfest, and you know, so it's like, but yeah, that literally I have made a list of things I want to get accomplished, like off this like MAD record that came out this year, and one of them was I was like, oh, I've never played that time zone. I gotta play that.
That's so funny that it's about the time zone, not the location.
Yeah, I mean, like
you played Central. You've played Central Time Zone?
Yeah. So what Breakaway would do, and MAD has done now too. Breakaway went on a half US one time, just us. You know, and we played like Dallas, we played St. Louis, played Chicago. So we got like
you've hit all those.
Detroit's in there.
But you haven't done like the Denvers, the Salt Lakes, or any of that.
Never.
Yeah.
I think Sentinel, my other band, has a record coming out in 2023, and the label that's doing it is based out of Denver. So I think we'll probably play something there, you know, around that. So that'll take my personal box of that, but I want to do it with MAD since that's like my main thing.
Well,
but we got asked to play a festival in Salt Lake, but it was just like, in order for man to fly out everybody, I was like, bro, this is how much that's going to take, and we are not worth that much money. Please do not. I was basically telling him like, don't.
Right.
Don't do.
Was that the Wild West Fest?
Yes, precisely.
Yeah. Stacked lineup regardless, but
stacked for sure. Was bummed when I saw that. I was like,
but I feel like that's an interesting exercise for anyone listening. Like, can you recall every time zone you've played? And you could tweet that to Ace and I after listening.
I'm curious.
I'm curious as well. You know what? Because I know on Spotify you can like add like a question, so I'll have that as the question for this episode.
I want to know. I think personally, I don't know how many there are in Europe. There's my naivete. So three in North America, and then like maybe a couple in Europe. I don't know. Gotta be more than just one, because I've done Germany, Poland, UK. Like that. I feel like Poland is far enough east where it's got to be a different one than like Germany or something. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I know that I've done all the North American ones for sure.
Yeah, I know you have.
Yeah, unless, yes, even like the stuff like way east is still within the Eastern time zone. But
oh yeah, definitely.
Put your stuff in the question. Going back to Mad, so you're in this time frame where you're like, I don't really know if I got another. Not like you wouldn't have another band in you, but it was just like, what's...
Oh, no, I thought that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. I was like, dude,
Like, was it like, should we just go out on a high note, so to speak? Or like...
Well, yo, here's the thing. Breakaway didn't go out on... Like, if we had broken up maybe like a year prior, would have been like a right proper time to break up.
Sure.
It took... our second LP, which sophomore LPs are always tough, just didn't do like terrible, but it was like, I'll admittedly, like we didn't really bring the heat like we did on the first one, and so like I don't like love that record. I still have a lot of fondness for the first LP. There's like a song or two on the second one that I think are good, but like it didn't sell as much. And like I could kind of see our like fan like base kind of like waning a little bit. And we did a weekend. I won't say like with who or whatever, but like it's not a band anybody would know, but just in case like somebody's listening, I don't like want to be talking shit necessarily. We did a weekend with like another band, and like the shows were like really bad. And I was like, ooh, maybe it's time. And so retrospect, it's like maybe shouldn't even done the second record, you know, like, and we should have just gone out like after the first one. Like most hardcore bands don't have 2 LPs. But I don't know. We probably could have wrapped up like either at our peak in like 2017 or done it like maybe in like 2018, but it just ended up being maybe like a year. You know another thing, it probably would have happened earlier, but we had a Euro tour planned, and I didn't want to bail on it. It was a Euro headliner, and honestly for us, it wasn't bad, and everything. But like, so when I stopped doing that, I legit was like, man, I just don't like, I don't know if I got I don't know if like I could do like, like do this all again, kind of thing. But here's the thing with me is like, I gotta do it. I was not in a band for like a few months, and I was like, I hate this. Like I hate like not having, like something to pour myself into.
Right.
And I kind of realized I'm like, oh, I'm always going to be doing this. Like in one way or another, like I always got to have this in my life and always got to be like active. Bro, I cannot be a bystander. And like it's like and part of me, for my own personal peace, kind of like wishes that I could, just to kind of be like, oh, I don't got to worry about like, setting anything up or, blah, 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 whatever. But like, I just love it too much. And so I can't.
I totally know how you feel. Like it's that same way where it's like, I kind of wish that I didn't have this burning need to like do a podcast, play multiple bands.
You do bands. You do like a festival. You get it. You do all
like it would be
and
nice to kind of just like be able to sit back and allow us. And there's definitely things on the back end that I'm trying to like shift, so it's like I can just continue to grow this thing. But instead of having to every new thing that I take on, it's like just extra work and time away from the other important shit in my life.
Yeah.
But not to get
Bro,
into
I know what you're talking about. I had to make a list at some point this year. I was like, I got to cut some stuff out. Or like just not really invest like time in certain things, and like because I was feeling spread too thin. I was like I'm trying to do too much, and so I definitely like snipped away like a couple things, and I felt better. I felt relief, like afterwards. But I totally know what you're talking about, bro.
Yeah, not to get too off topic on that, but like I have an insane like this is something that I'm like this might be a little bit personal on the pod, but
No, go for it.
we're going there. But I'm
Yeah.
something that I struggle with as a creative person and just with whether it's music or this stuff is like if I'm not doing like I've told myself is like what is the thing that I'm doing today that's helping move the needle even
It's a great way to
slightly
think. It's a great way
forward?
to think, man.
It is a great way
Yeah.
to think, but it's also like if I can't recall that one thing and I took an
Mhm.
off day or like things weren't lining up or I was just honestly burnt out,
Bums you
my
out.
my like value was like I feel like my value of existing is like
I do the
zeroed out.
same fucking thing, dude. I know what you're talking about, man. Like, it's just like you'll be like a day where it's like, oh, you look back and you're like, oh, I could have been doing this.
Hmm.
Like, I could have been like, I could have been, doing like X thing or like, like lining people up for podcasts, or whatever. I could have been like, like doing like more to like help promote a certain show I have booked or something like that. Like,
Right.
oh, I could have been like, like working, trying to like work with the guys to like write more music. There's like a laundry list of stuff.
Hmm.
And sorry, my little dog wants to sit up here. But it's I know exactly what you're talking about. I know the
Yeah.
exact feeling.
It's put me in a place where it's like I really need to reframe and practice like relaxing because like I heard someone say once like a shark doesn't stop swimming in the
Yep.
ocean because if
Mhm.
it does it dies, and that's
It
how I
does.
feel like
That's
I'm
how I feel
like
too.
constantly like go, but I need to be like okay, even though I feel that way, there's undeniable proof on a like on a biology side of like getting a good amount of sleep, like
Yeah, it
taking
kills
off
you.
days to
Like,
like to recharge. But I don't know, dude.
yeah,
It's
it's hard.
something that I'm honestly like needing to like go to therapy for because I need to like help reframe a couple things in my mind on that.
I feel that. I gotta do the same thing, man. It's funny you bring that up. I've literally thought about that recently. So I hear you. I get you.
Yeah. Um, I was like, where do we get off? Okay, so mad.
Sorry, I'm a talker, so
No,
it's
no,
kind of
it's good.
you know,
I knew that this was gonna be there would be multiple tangents as two
yes,
podcast people.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so let's fast forward a little bit to the latest
yeah,
record, Ascension,
sure,
that you put
yes.
out this year. Um,
Um,
I
Go ahead.
I think honestly, even though like I've been following a lot of forum stuff, I think I might have only like listened to like maybe a song or two of Mad
Hmm.
over the
Sure.
years. But listening to that record front to back, I was like, y'all are on some like y'all are in like your own lane for sure.
100%. Yes.
And it's like pushing into like it's almost like there's a duality of like I don't know what's more important to you for that band to put hardcore kids onto like that style a little bit more and like broaden and maybe like open your mind and bringing people from that world into the hardcore space.
It's interesting you say that. I've been seeing some like year-end lists, and like that will include Ascension, and if sometimes the list will be like very hardcore centric,
Mhm.
and then other times it's like a ton of metal stuff that I don't even know what it is, and then us. So it's like, uh, you know, the thing with us is kind of like Imity is an interesting kind of practice of sort of identity, because at times it's like, like we talk amongst ourselves. I'm like we even have a difficult time being like, are we a metal band or are we a hardcore band? And I think what we landed on is it's like we're a metal band you can mosh to that is comprised of hardcore people. Like, I put the moniker crossover doom on a lot of stuff because it was at least the simplest thing. Or not, I haven't put on a lot of stuff. I said it in like a print interview one time. But I think we're gonna start putting on some shirts and shit. But just kind of like, okay, this at least gives you a bit of an idea of like the elements that are in this. I do like the idea of putting kids on to the stuff that we're influenced by. Like, like I want hardcore kids to check out, like, even though it's not hardcore, but like check out Corrosion and Conformity's like later material. Check out Caius, check out Uncle Acid. But it's like we're like at the same time we're playing stuff like that. It's like, yo, we want people moshing at the shows though.
Right.
It's like, and that's been kind of like a tough thing for me. Not tough, that's kind of a weird way to put it. Sometimes we'll play like a capital M metal gig, and it's like not the kind of show people are like moving around a lot at. And I'm like, I'm kind of spoiled because that's what I'm like used to. And like that's sort of my barometer for like, am I doing a good job? Is like people
Right.
like people trying to kill each other? Okay, they are. Okay, then yeah, we're doing a good job. So it's like, but so that's the thing is when you're playing like a metal show with like melodic death metal bands, and it's like not really moshing. People are just kind of like standing around like headbanging. They're enjoying themselves, but it's like I don't know. And so yeah, I mean, we are, like you said, we're very much so our own thing. It's cohesive for sure, but it's like nobody else really sounds like us. The only people, the only comparisons that we like get to contemporaries are like, Twitching Tongues, Age of Apocalypse, but we're very different in those things too.
Yeah.
So we pull from similar stuff, but the end result is different. I mean, we got a lot of Sabbath in there, but then in regards to hardcore, it's like it's in the DNA. We're extremely influenced by War Hungry.
Yeah.
Like we're extremely influenced by Life of Agony. The Brooklyn sound of the early 90s, like, like there's elements of like Biohazard, like in there and stuff, like, like we like fuck with like, I mean, like, I fuck heavily with like Marauder. Like we don't sound like that, but it's like kind of like that Brooklyn vibe of the early 90s where you had like your Carnivore Typo Negative, your Life of Agony, your Biohazard, your Marauder, like that kind of like fuse of metal and hardcore. It's kind of like what we're going for. Thing is, we're from the South. So it's like, and I like when bands sound like where they're from. So it's like we put in elements of like bands from like, kind of like the Southern United States, like the Corrosion Conformity I mentioned. The Lamb of God is like in like regardless of like Randy being on the record, it's like that's still in our DNA musically. Like we like listen to that and be like, yeah, this shit rocks. Like
right.
You can, and also Lamb of God tracks, you put that in a hardcore setting, you can fucking mosh your ass off to that. So it's like that's part of it. Yeah, I mean, like I kind of like that. At first I felt a little self-conscious about it when the record came out, because I was like, maybe we're doing something a little too different. Maybe like kids aren't really gonna rock, with this. But most of the shows we played off the record, kids have been into it. And now I feel more like proud. I'm more like, what, it's cool that we're doing this thing that's not, everybody just kind of being like influenced by Kickback or, like whatever kind of like the influence du jour is. So I'm proud of, kind of the flavor we've concocted. And we were even writing some new songs the other day. And our drummer JD, like we kind of talked about maybe going like a more like Crowbar kind of Pantera down route, and we still like are like intending on putting a little bit more of that in the DNA. But JD was like, yo man, one thing that I don't want to lose though is that like kind of like rocking swagger that we've got. So regardless of what we're doing, I don't want to take that out. And I was like, all right, bro, like, we'll keep that, as part of like the DNA and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like another, like I'm going on a tangent with your question, but like another thing is I do want to put kids on to like the stuff that like influences us as a band. Like I want kids to check out like Acid Bath. Like that's like, you know, like another band that like does like the harsh vocal, but the singing as well, and has like the hard parts, but there's a lot of different parts or whatever. Like I want to kind of like how when Twitching Tongues came out, it's like, you know, and like kind of like the closed casket thing was like happening. It's like kids started listening to Troy Core because like those bands were like influenced by them. Like kids started like, you know, like bumping Stigmata more.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that. When, you know, King Nine being a band, it's like they're referencing like the IDS New York stuff. They're referencing like Everybody Gets Hurt and like Terror Ave and stuff. And like, you know, kids started like listening to that. Comes to MAD, I want people to kind of check out like the harder southern stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like all those like earlier like metal bands like Pantera, Metallica, like all of that, like go back to any podcast and talking about, you know, the first heavy bands that people listen to, and it's probably one of those. So it's not that it's like totally connecting to an entirely different world. It's like, hey, just go down through memory lane and you'll
go to
probably
your roots.
Yeah, go to the roots. Go to the source.
Go to your source. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's this. Like this MAD is a representation, honestly, of like my roots, of like the stuff that I was like you know, getting really into when I was like early in music. You know, it's like we like talk about like Pantera and we talk about Metallica and stuff, and like, you know, like, and Lamb of God, the stuff that was like would have been on like Guitar Hero and shit like that.
Right.
Like and that's in there. And you know, I just want to take that stuff for me. I just want to take all that stuff and move it into rooms where people are kickboxing. Right. So that's the intention.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah, there's definitely songs off of that record when I was listening today where I was like, my jaw was like, this is just a rock like anthem. It's not necessarily like this is the song that has the part that's gonna transition to this, that's a two-step. It's like we're just like rocking on this super slow like drum beat and drudgy guitar, but like we're gonna do that for a minute before the rest of the song even kicks in.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is that we like wanted to like, another hardcore band that was big influence on us, Iron Age. You know, like the Tarpey Camp. Like my vocals are heavily influenced by Eternal Champion and stuff. And just a lot of Arthur projects. And the thing is, we were looking at Sleeping Eye. We were looking at that record, and it's like, yo, these are like 4-minute long songs. And I was like, yo, we should do that. Like, you know, we'll do something different and have these like long tracks. I mean, we opened the record with a 5-minute long song. But
yeah, I know. It's a bold move.
It's a journey, you know. So it's like, you know, I love that track. So it's kind of like, you know, but then we also, it's like, yo, we got to keep some on here for like the hardcore person. So we got tracks on there that are like, you know, like faster, shorter, you know, like a little more concise. But it's like when it was time to kind of jam out, we didn't try to pull any reins in too much. It was like, you know, let's try, you know, like this stuff out. Like we kind of have songs in our catalog that it's like, depending on what type of show we're playing, we can play a completely different set and it will work for one show. But maybe because when we make set lists, I have to be like, not just me, we're a team, but we'll be like, yo, we're playing to hardcore people. So we got to play like the hardcore songs.
Right.
And it's like sometimes it's like we get asked to play like something like a little more like metal oriented. It's like, okay, we're playing in the metal crowd. So it's like we can kind of like
let's bust out the 5-minute songs for those.
Yeah, we can bust out. Like I don't want to play 7 Crowns at every show because that's a 5-minute like, you know, long song. And like, you know, I got a short attention span too. A hardcore person's attention span is noticeably short in general. And I say that as someone that identifies as such. It's like that. We're gonna save that for the metal gig. Yeah. And then like, you know, like we got a track coming out on like the Extermination comp that is like a total like hardcore song that I'm like, oh, like I want to like open with this. We play it now live and it goes over well, but people don't like know it like yet. But it's like the kind of thing where it's like, all right, that one's for the hardcore set. You know, and then like wrote some stuff the other day. It's like, okay, like I think we're gonna do a promo middle of the year. just release a couple more songs just cause. One's like, this is the mosher, and the other one's like, this is the rocker.
Right.
So it's like, yo, we're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. No, I think that's really that's a huge plus to that band is to be able to like, oh, like we don't have this one set that we can kind of tweak a little bit for show to show. It's like, oh, we can. It's not that we're changing our sound because are covering like a ton of different ground here, but
It all
we
works
know our
together,
customer,
but
when
yeah,
we're delivering our product. So
absolutely. So and that's the thing. It goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where it's like I'm seeing like year-end lists from like people or publications or whatever, where it's like for one person, they're like, oh yeah, I like that record, and the songs that they reference as liking are probably different because that person might be a metal fan.
right,
And then for like the kids into hardcore, it's like, oh, like I like these like Mosh tracks on the record. So like I like it because of that.
interesting.
So I do think it's like we appeal to different units
Yeah,
for different, and also that kind of reflects in like the gigs we play too. Like I set up all like our Richmond shows, but like a lot of stuff like we'll end up playing. It's like we did some dates in Texas with Dead Heat this year, and I wanted to do with Dead Heat because I'm like, there's another metal band that plays in hardcore like that.
right.
Wanted to like link up with that. Like we're playing a show. We ended up playing with like a lot of like the Maggot Stomp stuff, and like we're not a death metal band at all, but like we ended up playing with like Undeath. We ended up playing with like Enforce a lot. There's another band that's like same thing. We like we're playing a show with Stabbed at the beginning of the year, before playing like one of the TUI reunions in Baltimore, and like the Stab gigs in New York, but like that show's like Stabbed, and then there's like a doom metal band playing, but then there's like some hardcore bands on it too.
Right.
It's like we play like a lot of like mixed stuff. It's like we on the same gig like in Richmond we'll play a show with like Gate Creeper and Antichrist Siege Machine and Genocide Pact, and then we'll also play like shows with like like Downfall and like Combust and stuff. So it's like we are a weird entity in that it's like we jump around and it still all makes sense.
Yeah, totally. If people haven't, go listen to Ascension. It's a great
Thank
record.
Thank you.
Let's move to Form, and it's interesting to hear how Form and the start of Mad kind of were around the same time.
I think literally the same month.
Okay, yeah,
and that goes back to what we were talking about doing so much shit.
Yes,
it was just like why kind of what we were talking about. I looked at my life and I go, oh, other than booking shows, I got nothing on the books.
Right.
Like I was like, what am I gonna do? Right. I was like, I can only go to the gym so much.
Yeah.
Like, I can only play so many video games. Like, so it was like, okay, like, and like another thing that's like, I'm also a writer. I've written a couple books. I'm working on another one right now, but it's like writing for me is very like I couldn't just dive into that because it was very like when inspiration strikes,
sure,
I hit the computer, but sure. It's like forcing myself to do that. It's like the good shit does not come out. So I was like, okay, Forum started with I've never talked about this aspect of how Forum started with anybody, or maybe I have in person, but like not that many people. So a part of Forum was my father was a member of something called the Richmond Forum when I was younger. And what the Richmond Forum was that it was an organization that got people to come speak. That's all it was. It was just a big, like, grand theater, and then somebody of note would come and kind of talk about their life story, or maybe they would tell just like talk about specific subject matter, or sometimes they would, if they were a performer, they would like kind of do half story, like half performance. I'd seen like Steve Martin and Martin Short on kind of doing a comedy performance like with this Richmond Forum. I'd seen BB King before he passed, like half tell stories, half play a set. I had seen Ken Burns, a documentary guy, up there talking about stuff. I want to say I saw Buzz Aldrin, one of the dudes that went to the moon, but he was really boring and I fell asleep in the middle of it. But
so I saw
like
this rock and then I saw this other rock.
Yeah, literally. I was just like, it's just like he's not like some of these people are orators. They're like made to talk, and then that guy is a scientist essentially. So it's like he's up there like
there are very few scientists like that can actually make it interesting and engaging.
Exactly. So I would go see these people talk, and that's kind of where the name came from. Is I was like, all right, I want to do like a podcast that is like people talking about like to an audience stuff that they are passionate about, and and when it comes to hardcore punk and metal, what made them get into it. And I didn't want to know I wanted to know the hows and the whats, but I really wanted to know the why. Because like the thing is, this isn't a normal thing.
No.
Like, and you've done like a Patreon episode. You've done like you've been on and stuff like that. Like it's like what brings it's that thing I said earlier. What brings that felon into the room with that like scientist or some shit that it's like why are they not? I mean, I guess you could be a scientist and a felon, but that is interesting. Like, not to be like that, but like what brings these people that are from completely different walks of life into these rooms where people are just yelling into a microphone? Like, why did I wanted to know? Like, get people's stories. The main influence for that podcast was James Lipton's Inside the Actor Studio, where he would like get people that were like masters of their craft of acting, get them on stage and ask them, questions about, being an actor or being a director.
Yeah.
Cause I just I love movies. So that was like a big thing for me. And, so I like thought about, I was like, I only wanted to do in person at first. And still honestly wish that was still the model, but it's just not the way things work.
It's very funny that you say that, because I think the idea of the podcast, at least on the scope side, was something I thought about for a long, long time. We had started recording episodes in the summer of 2019 and only dropped the show in like November. And it was the same thing. I was like, I only want to do shit in person.
Yep.
When like people would be coming through for Wild West Hardcore Fest, I'm like trying to like do shit in the
That's literally mine.
And then
literally same thing. Yeah.
And there's a goal of mine in the next couple of years is trying to do more like live podcasting, whether it's like either at like a fest and we can do like 6 guests and it's like in a certain room. I'm not exactly how to do it, but seeing not only like Colin and Bo do it at Sound and Fury, but also like I think it's Ray Hawkins who does 100 Words or Less. He did it over at Outbreak, and that was something that was like, okay, that's something as well.
It's Axe to Grind did it.
Axe to Grind has done it before.
I think I've thought about, because like I thought about doing it for us. I think what I would do, and I'll drop the kind of like the potential knowledge here that I haven't really put out there. I think what I ended up doing is I think I would use the same venue I do my hardcore shows at, or one of the venues I do my hardcore shows at in Richmond. I think I would maybe do like a local guy there. I think I'd maybe do like Tim Barry from like a Veil or something, and do it in a way where I know people would show up. I know people would like show up in person and like and be down to like sit in chairs and shit and watch that and then record it, what have you.
Right.
I've thought about it, maybe in 2023 end up doing that one. I'm not 100% sure, but I like the idea of doing it like not all the time, but like I think with yours it's like yours is an interview podcast as well, but I think also there's like I think your format kind of like of having a bunch of people on with like work, or what have you. And I'm sure you could do it at Wild Rose,
Yeah.
uh, or something like that. That would actually probably be sick because you could get like, people that would otherwise not be talking on mic, like, usually,
Yeah.
what have you, just like in on the same spot together. I think that would be a cool idea.
Mhm.
But
Um, Jumping back to you,
yeah.
so it all makes sense now as far as your like, you know, day that you were born to the moment that we're speaking, as far as being influenced by a lot of these other things, and especially where the name comes from, and just that sense of like people are showing up to pay attention to this person, and
Yeah.
that almost feels very extra intentional off of like, you know, like I think someone like myself or someone like Jamie or K, like
Hmm.
we, not to say that you wouldn't go after like the people that are in like maybe smaller bands that are like just have a fresh demo, but I think now that I know this background, it almost doesn't fit your format to have someone who's like, maybe they've been in hardcore for like 3 years and they just started a new band, but you want to have that person that has the 10 plus years of stories and lore
It's
to talk about.
Yeah, so you got it. You understand.
Mhm.
That's literally it. Now, here's another thing though. I think something that's very important for hardcore is to have people on that are involved right now
Mhm.
and are like I like the idea of having like a younger person on. It's just the thing is like with a lot of people that are like very young, their journey's just beginning.
Mhm.
So it's like I've had the Cat Moss on, like she's younger. I've had like I'm sure if I look at my list, it's like I've had people on that aren't necessarily like super tenured, but mainly it's like I think my first kind of like qualifier was I initially was like, I want to see how many people I can get on that are involved in a lot of different stuff. Cause I always found those people that are really fascinating, kind of like what we were talking about earlier.
Right.
It's like, how did you get involved with so many different bands or things or whatever?
Mhm.
But yeah, it's like I feel like I end up showcasing people that are a little newer on like the paywall behind the paywall stuff because it's just discussion based. It's just
Mhm.
chopping it up with people and what have you. Um and one thing is like with Forum is like I wanted to catalog like like I wanted people to have a library to go to learn about the history of. I mean, I interview hardcore punk and metal people, but like since hardcore is what I'm most involved in, I want people to have a library to go to and be like, oh, I want to learn about what this guy or this girl or this person. I want to learn about what kind of like their kind of family tree is,
Yeah.
and stuff. I wanted people to have a reference point to go and be like, and that's why I'm so methodical with it. That's
Mhm.
why I'm so like, I need to know about day one. I need to know about when you started getting into music in general, what your first band is, what your first show is, and then like give me the branches off the tree from that.
Right.
Like, that's why I do it that way. And also my favorite point in anybody's story is this one. It's the why did you end up here? Like what and there's a certain thing that people are not 100% comfortable talking about everybody, but I do if it I don't want to force this out of people because it feels, for lack of a better term, just like not cool. But like, you know, for hardcore people of a certain age, and I'm sure it still happens. It definitely still happens, but you gravitate towards this aggressive, angry music because you're potentially an aggressive, angry person. And when people kind of like get into their backstories on like they're like like this aspect of my life was hard, and I found this music that represented how I was feeling. I like hearing about that. I like hearing about people that are like, like I had a hard time at home, and then I found this place where I like developed my own family,
Mhm.
or like they're like, like I like didn't feel like I fit anywhere, and I found this place where I did. and like, and things felt right. Like I love hearing that out of people. But to kind of ask someone, it's like, yo, so it was like shit fucked up at home and that's why you like hardcore. It's like I don't want to do that. Like, it's like, so when it comes there, it's cool.
Right.
But it's like, like if that's not how someone actually wants to talk about it, because people obviously, are going to reveal, what they want to reveal,
Sure.
then like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But that is kind of like, because that's what like I was a very frustrated young person, for various reasons. And getting into hardcore provided me a place to kind of like creatively grow, and a place where I could like take control of things in my life. Like I started booking shows, and and like making music with people and setting stuff up, and it gave me confidence, and it gave me like a place where I was like, I am a master of the reality that I'm experiencing. And I wanted to hear other people's experiences like that. um and I appreciate it when people get deep. Not everybody has to, but when they do, it's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to provide a spot for that. And the at the time, the only other like really like out there's obviously a lot of like different like hardcore related podcasts, but like the one that was with the most shine at the time was Axe. And that's just like, it's like sports radio. It's like discussion based, and that's cool. I like didn't want to do something exactly like like that. Um and Yeah, just to get specific, I thought of a guy, asked some people that around town that was like, who would be a good guy, and I was like David Foster. He got his own business chain. He was in Cold World, he was in Blacklisted, he's in Brace War. Like this guy had like a laundry list, and I was like, that'd probably be a good first guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of went from there.
Yeah. Um, and going back to that point they were saying, as far as like, you don't want to just assume and just ask a very like leading question about
Yeah,
like
no.
someone's home life. But something that I've learned, and I have a background of talking to people, because like one of my first career jobs was I was working in a marketing department at a trucking company,
Mm.
and I would need to interview drivers who, like, if you're like a long haul truck driver, you're not like chatting with people maybe on the phone nowadays, but like your social skills might not be someone in the
Yo,
office.
what trucking company?
It's called Bison Transport.
Why is it? I used to be in logistics, so I was just
Oh,
curious.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was I worked right out of school, uh,
For what company?
UPS Freight,
Oh,
and
shout
I
out.
was there. I was there for 9 years.
Damn.
Right out of college, I quit in 2020, and they got bought out by a Canadian company, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember the name of it,
Yeah.
but yeah. So you talk about. I was like, oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
I did it for a
You
long
know
time.
how to get shit from A to Z.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So like that was just something where it was just like, oh, I need to really frame up how I ask these questions and like make people feel comfortable like super early. This is when I was like just fresh out of high school, like
Sure.
maybe 2021. And
Yeah.
now it's like, yes, there's like common ground, but there's like, especially when you're getting on a podcast and you're getting on a Zoom call with someone you might not have met before. And
Mhm.
then, people that are coming on now, they're like, oh, like this isn't just like a rinky dink show that 50 of my friends might listen to. This has reach, and this is going to go out to people. So,
Yeah.
um, and also, yeah, just making sure that people know it's like, I don't really have any quote unquote agenda unless there's like specific, like there's there's a moment that's happening with that person or that band that I'm like want to cover.
You
But
want to, yeah,
most
absolutely, which makes
times if
complete
you
sense.
can create a nice like level playing field,
Mhm.
most of the time I'm sure you felt this, where stuff starts to just come to you and you don't have
Oh,
to
well,
work as hard.
it's like you kind of got to assess the person as well.
Mhm.
So it's like I'm in sales. Like outside of like once I stopped working at UPS Freight, I got into sales for roofing firms.
Mhm.
And you one of the with the types of people you're selling to, you have to kind of like, they tell you to kind of like analyze. They're like, okay, what kind of person are you dealing with? Is it somebody that's like very to the point? They don't really want to go into a lot of details. Like they just kind of want to like, like tell you straight up on something. Is it somebody who likes to talk? Is it somebody who likes to analyze? Like, you kind of break this stuff down. But one of the things I noticed as I was doing form is I was like, okay, some people you got to pull a little bit out of. Maybe they're really good musicians, but it's like talking really ain't the strong suit. So you got to know how to approach that person.
Right.
Other people, like probably like you interviewing me or whatever, because I talk so damn much, you don't say much at all. Right. You just kind of like ask a question, and then that person's just going to kind of roll and roll and roll and roll.
But at the same time, I have learned that sometimes if I just let someone just go off, it's like, okay, if I'm feeling bored in this conversation, I'm sure the people listening to it.
You got it.
So I just got to slightly real people back.
Yeah, you definitely have to mess with the line a little bit, like pull on the leash with some people, what have you. That I won't name names. There's literally some people that like I've like thought about interviewing, and then friends of friends have been like, bro, getting that person from like point A to point B is going to be like it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe.
Yeah. Cause again, your show isn't let's just shoot the shit. It's like, there's a purpose.
Yeah.
Like of
and
what
I,
we're trying to
do. And honestly thankful for that, because it does help me be like, okay, we know where we're going. So it's like, as someone's kind of going away from the road or whatever, I know to like kind of bring them back to the road.
Right.
And it's like, all right, well, let's keep going down the road here and get to this or that or what have you. So it is helpful in that regard. But it's like, you look at the length of time you do a podcast, you look at the length of time on certain episodes. I have some episodes with people that we talk for like an hour. I have some episodes with people we talk for 3 hours. It just goes to show you what the difference. And the thing is, it's not like even an age thing. Scott Maggotstomp, he's a pretty cut and dry guy. Like, we talk for maybe like an hour, 20 minutes, hour, 15 minutes, whatever. Then let's talk to someone like Bob Shed. He's a very conversational person. That was like a 3-hour episode. So it's like, I know you kind of know, like we're not know, but you end up dealing with different types of people.
Totally.
And it teaches you something. And I'm sure as you learn, it kind of teaches you to like kind of like assess people.
Totally. Yeah. I think one of the most eye-opening approaches or guests for me was when I had Joseph from Tsunami on. I was like, oh,
he's a quiet cat.
Yes. And
you got to work with him.
That was our first time actually. Yeah. Shout out to Joseph. And we've become friends like ever since then. And he's like, we've talked about doing a second one, and he's like, I think you just caught me at the right time where I was like, yeah, let's try doing a podcast. But he's like, now that we're like actual friends, there's a little bit more comfortability. But at the same time, like if him and I go out for coffee, he's not just like, like he's,
no,
he is who he is. And
I see that man every, like at minimum once every 2 weeks. Because he works at a coffee shop like 30 minutes away from me.
Yeah.
Timeless. So yeah, works Timeless. So I'll go. I'll see like friends over there or whatever. Because where I get my haircut is like up the street.
Right.
So I'll go over there, but it's like whenever I see him, I'm like, I'm a pretty like kind of like I'm a pretty up person, so I'll be like, "Oh, what's going on, man? Like, what are you doing?" He's like, "Hey, man, what's up?" And I'm like, "What's been up?" He's like, "Just chilling." And I'm like, "Fuck yeah, dude!" Like, like it's like putting him and like Sammy Drain in the same room would be like literally two exact opposite animals.
Yeah.
But but that's the thing is, I was talking with a friend of mine in Richmond this week, Lee, who I mentioned earlier. He sings for the band Division of Mine. And he sings for this band Heartstripes. He is like that too. He's like, and he's like, oh, I met Joseph recently, and he's like, I noticed that he was a lot like me, and he's like, kind of like reserved and stuff like that. And he said they kind of hit it off basically on being like that together. I was like, oh, you're quiet, so am I. Like, kind of thing.
Do you want to stand in awkward silence? Sure.
Like, sounds great. Like, So, but that's the thing is you'll like, it's like, somebody that has been in 30 plus bands that I had on Forum, DFJ, like that guy can like rip every instrument and is in like some of the most badass foundational bands in modern hardcore. But he's like, not like he's not the kind of guy who's like, oh man, I like that guy told me like an hour-long story. That's not dude's energy. He's a very like reserved cat. And so when you're interviewing that person, as opposed to like somebody that, like Sammy or something like that, like it's like a different approach. It's a different, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
And you do it too. Kind of like what you kind of got to do, and what you kind of, interviewing other podcasters is great because they do this.
Yes.
Interviewing Colin is easy.
Right.
Interviewing Bob is easy. Not to say that any of them are hard. None of them are hard. None of them are hard. It's just like you guys have a different type of conversation with somebody.
Right. Yeah, man. It's I don't know. There's been a lot of self-reflection when I look back at the amount of like people that I've interviewed, and there's been times where it's like, oh, like I definitely over talked on that episode, or there's been times where it's like, oh, I like let that person kind of go. So if anything, if I think it's kind of helped my communication like skills overall, just like even if I'm just like talking to someone at a show, like I personally hate it when I'm just like, when there's like everyone's like overly extroverted and just kind of almost talking over each other. It's like, what are we actually talking about here? But
yeah, I can handle that fine. I think it's just because I hang out with like a lot of people that like just get really animated and stuff. Sure. But at the same time, like my girlfriend talks to me about this. Like she can't stand it. So like I kind of like, you bring that up, I kind of like think about it through talking to people, do the podcast stuff like that. I'm like, okay, like, some people culturally kind of talking over one another is a part of talking. And then some people, it's like it's like rude, whatever. So it's kind of figuring out like who you're working with. But yeah, it's a great practice in kind of like the art of conversation.
So at this point in time of the time recording this, Forum is at, you haven't hit 100 episodes yet.
No, it only comes out every couple weeks. So it's twice a month. I want to say that we are at, I got it right here. The next one will be 89.
Okay, so we're getting up close to 100. Yeah.
We're getting close.
Yeah.
We're getting there. We'll hit it this year. Yeah. Like towards like the back half of the year. Yeah, I mean it started in May 2019. And just do it bi-weekly. Weekly would have been like, I think like quite an undertaking for me. And doing it just like once a month would have kind of been like, I don't know, not enough to be like a thing for me, at least.
Right.
I feel like we're at a fine spot. And one Patreon episode a month. So technically there's 3.
Right.
But yeah, so it's we're getting there. We're getting there. I gotta think of something special to do for episode 100.
Oh, dude, yeah. It's those milestone episodes that trip me up, where I'm like, like, how do I kick off this new season? It's got to be a big yes. It's got to be that.
Yeah, I got a good one. I'll drop it here because it will be it'll be out soon. So if people haven't listened to Forum yet, or if they do and want to preview, the first episode of the year is going to be Bruce 100 Demons. So I got that. I scheduled that up with him today. Which is cool. This is cool for me. He reached out to me. He's like, hey man, I'm a fan of your podcast. I'd like love to be on. And I was like, yo, like that is awesome. So, and he is tenured. That man is in his 50s, I'm pretty sure. So he has lived a life. So
it's too bad that he can't be episode 100.
See, that would be sick, but he wants to do it now. So
right, yeah.
No, I got some. So I keep a list. I keep a list of like, and I'm really big into crowd participation. So it's like when people send me stuff, they're like, "I'd love to hear this." I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna write that down."
Who's been requested the most that you haven't gotten?
that I haven't gotten to.
Mm.
I mean, yo, there are people that I've like that have been requested a lot that I hit up that are like, yo, thanks but no thanks,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
One that has been asked for a lot, like this just kind of also goes to show like, what because what your listenership probably would be their number one is like different than what mine would be. It's different than what like Axe to Grind would be if they did interviews or something.
Dude.
But well, that's something that I like. Yo, what I really found was different was when I asked people that listen to Forum what their like records of the year were.
Mm.
And like what I got back is I was like, this is not what I expected at all.
Right.
But I think like Greg Locking Out has been asked for a lot. I asked him and he was like, I generally don't like to do interviews at all, but he's like, if something comes, if I'm putting out a record coming up, then like let's revisit. So he
Right.
wasn't completely like against it.
I think that's the one thing that I found that the bigger fish that I'm trying to go for, there
Mhm.
is those people are kind of in a mindset of like that is doing press and that is
Yes.
work and that is
Yeah.
like something that I don't want to versus that's why I've been trying to shift to have our thing be more like a show that you could just come on
Yeah.
at any time. You don't have to have any necessarily
That's
a
cooler anyway. Like
I agree.
it's always kind of like when someone comes on, it's like, I'm here to promote X thing. It's like, it feels like not organic,
Mhm.
like, what have you. Um, I'm trying to think of who I have I have a notebook downstairs with like the list on it or whatever
Mhm.
um on it, but I don't got it with me. So I'm not really I like tally too. I take it seriously. I like tally everybody's like, I'm like, okay, they asked for this person,
Right.
kind of thing. So I will have to look. But yeah, I mean, I don't do a ton of prep. So, and the reason I don't is because the original format of the show, when it was only in person, was like either that person had to be visiting Richmond, which happens a lot because it's an easy place to hit on the East Coast
Sure.
if you're like traveling and shit like that, or they had to be playing a gig. So I would like not think of like, okay, what about this person I randomly thought of? It'd be like, okay, well, this band's playing here in 2 weeks. Let's see if I can get this guy around, that or whatever.
Sure.
Now it's more because of the Zoom format. It's like, okay, now I can plan ahead like a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see for 2023. I do have a list. And much like Santa, I am checking it twice. So
You're
we'll
keeping
figure it out.
you're keeping tallies as well, making sure
I'm
who's
I am. I will have to go downstairs after this
mhm.
and see, see what the people want because
Yeah.
I try. I've asked Vogel. But again, there's another person. It's a friend of mine that he was like, I want to do it around when we have like something
Right.
coming out, what
Yeah.
have you.
I think
So
I got lucky. Well, yeah, he's been on the show, but it was right when Pain into Power was like
bingo.
starting to come out. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of yeah, it's the same thing where there's I think some people will just be stuck in that mindset forever because they're at just a certain
Especially if it's
scale.
their job, it's like
Yes.
that's kind of hard to like not like think of it as such.
Yeah. But I do think that like, I don't know, trying to frame it in a way where it's like, yeah, you could come on at any time. And there's been lots of people that I've talked to like Will from Neverending Game and Gridiron.
Oh yeah, yeah.
After they played Hold Your Ground in September, I hit him up and he was like, "Yo, I want to do it, but like let's,
He said
do
the
it."
same thing to me.
Yes.
He was like, yo, he was like, let me wait for some shit to come out,
Yeah.
what have you.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, some people, it's that's
Yeah.
and I get it. It's like you're thinking in a promoter
Mhm.
mindset. Yeah, I'm a
And
promoter. I fucking
and here's
understand
the
that.
thing is that I personally am a little like I'm respectfully unrelenting when I'm
Yeah,
chasing these people. Like
yeah.
I've for years, like I have screenshots of Code Orange live streams where Jamie is saying, "Yes, I'll do the podcast." And then it's like, yeah, let's do it. And then we don't pick a day. It's like,
Yeah,
and I will absolutely talk about it once I land. It's not about if, it's about when, right?
sure,
It
sure.
randomly, Frankie from Amir liked a podcast clip, and I was
There you
like,
go.
"Do you want to come on the pod?" He's like, "Ask me in a year," and that was 8 months ago. So
You
I'm
know,
counting
you
down the
keeping
clock.
track. Keeping track. No,
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. No, like as you should. Me, I'm more like if I kind of vibe people out. Like if like I ask somebody once and they're like, it doesn't seem like they're like vibing it. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna move on.
Right.
I'll move on for now. Maybe I'll circle back later
Yeah.
if like the the feeling strikes.
Mhm.
But no, I hear you. I think that's like a good way to
Yeah.
be. Um,
I will say the unrelenting chase is for people that I know who are gonna do like they do podcasts. It's not just like someone
yes.
that I know. It's like over time. It's like, well, they haven't done any other podcasts, so
Maybe
maybe
that's not their
maybe it's
vibe.
not their
Yeah.
thing, you know.
Yeah.
But
Precisely.
at the same time, I'm a believer. It's like, you know, it might just take like you having their friend in another band to be like, oh, I get it now, and now I want to do
Yes.
it.
Well, it's funny you say that. Some people I've had on forum have been like, yo, like I was like nervous about the idea. And people you wouldn't suspect, to
Right.
be honest.
Hmm.
It like I was nervous about the idea. And then once it started, it felt fine.
Yeah.
Like it was like we got into it for like 20 minutes and then like it was like, okay, I'm chilling now.
Hmm.
But it's like, some people it's like, yo, I hit up a really good friend of mine recently, and he was just like, yo, he was like, I'm a fan of the show. He's like, I ain't got nothing to say though. Like he's like, it's like, he's like, I listen to the show and stuff. He's like, but it's like, he's like, I don't got anything I need to talk about,
Hmm.
kind of thing. And I was like, oh, respect, no big deal. Like, it's cool. So to teach their own. There is a y'all are getting the behind the scenes on podcasting.
Right.
I it's like, and I do have a list on my phone of people that I would like to talk to that I just haven't gotten around to yet. Um, I think some people ask for like Chad, Newfound Glory.
Mm.
Uh, like it's like I don't listen to them really, but it's like we could talk about hardcore and stuff. I learn a lot from these people, whatever. Even if it's not something that like I listen to, like she already did getting it out, but like I like Mina Caputo would be fun. Aaron Death Threat would be fun. Um, I like it's like I want to talk to Jason Tarpey at some point, but as I am such an acolyte of his music between Iron Age and Eternal Champion and stuff, I feel like I have to earn that one.
Hmm.
So I'm sure if I asked him like this week, he'd be like, yeah, sure. But I feel like I was like, no, I need to put out like more badass music before I'm
Right.
allowed
Right.
to do this.
Well,
So
it's funny because I was mentioning to you like originally when it was all in person, and I was trying to plan around Wild Rose,
yeah,
to curate some of those just because so many people were in, and that was the first year that Sonny was coming up to film in addition
oh
to
yeah,
us, and I
hmm
asked him, and he was like, I have a lot going on, and he declined, and I'm in hindsight, I'm really happy because when he did come on the podcast, which was technically our 100th episode because we had a episode 0 pilot, but it was like
got you.
episode 99, which is like
Sure,
my favorite. There's a lot of layers to it. The main thing for it is like I was actually prepared to talk about what I wanted to talk about for
yeah,
that.
yeah, definitely. And like
It's the exact
that's like
same thing. Like I shouldn't get Brian of Knock Loose or Colin of God's Hate in the
yeah.
first 20 episodes. Like
No, and it's like, and like Brian's another person that's like it's like he's a little quiet.
mhm,
Like too, so there's another person you kind of got, and you would think like for like someone who's like in a band of that size,
mhm,
like playing in front of that many people, that wouldn't really necessarily be the deal, but like he's a soft-spoken person as well.
right.
So it's interesting how that works,
Mhm,
whereas you have someone like a Keel, and it's like that dude's going to talk the whole time. You don't even have to do anything,
right.
like but it is an interesting dance. It's taught me a lot, as I'm sure it's taught you,
Mhm.
like you mentioned. And it's doing it. Doing this stuff is cool because it's kind of like it's the modern zine. It's like it's where you get to get your lore about the genre and the world and everything like that. And
Totally.
that's it is a we're doing we gotta get our own flag for podcasters, the thin whatever line for that.
um,
I don't know what color, but
yeah.
thin chartreuse line
Right.
podcasters.
So
So
I asked this question to guests specifically who have like multiple LPs and huge bodies of work. But
mhm.
I'm going to tailor it to our conversation around podcasting.
Okay.
And I know, that your choices aren't to devalue any of the conversations you might have had, but tell me, what do you think is the most underrated form of passion episode? The one that
Okay.
just didn't go.
I automatically know.
And then
There's two, but
okay, and what is the most overrated one? Where you knew it was gonna do the numbers, but you just kind of felt like it was kind of meh.
that's that one's more interesting. But I know what it is. The most underrated episode is Derek Vella of Tomb Mold and Dream Unending. And I think it was only because the my audience, being more of the capital H hardcore variety,
Mhm,
doesn't know who that guy is.
mhm,
And he he and I became like really good friends off of that episode.
hmm.
I'd never met in person. He told me he was a fan because of the DFJ episode, and be it they're in a band together and shit. And he was like, I'd love to come on. And we talk like every week now. Like he's like, it's like we like I like whispered some shit on the new Dream Unending records, like a super tiny little contribution to that. And he's helping me write music, now and stuff. But he gets into kind of like the philosophy of making music and stuff on his episode. He gets into kind of some very heady concepts.
Hmm.
And I was having a great time talking to him about that. And it did fine, but it didn't do like great numbers or anything. Because I think people just don't know who that guy is. But God, if you are listening right now, it doesn't, check me. It does not even matter if you like Dream Unending or Tomb Mold, or like maybe you don't even like listen to death metal or metal at all. It doesn't matter. Listen to that episode. I highly recommend it.
Mhm.
The most overrated one, love this guy. Like nice dude or whatever, but like I feel like it was a very just kind of like straightforward conversation for as many numbers it has. Brendan Turnstile, like it's like he is an outstanding performer and has done a lot of really cool stuff, but it's like we didn't go like super deep or anything on
Hmm.
there. But I think it's because it's got the Turnstile name on it. It's got like a ton of listens.
Right.
Where it's like my most listened to episode is it was Walter Delgado, but now it's Parker Cannon.
Mm.
But it's like the Walter one. The reason that one has so many like listens is because that is like the most like that was like an awe-inspiring like conversation. That was it was like he was revealing stuff that I don't think he'd really revealed on air before. Like like there's a reason that one has. I'll say that was good fucking radio, bro. Like that one was like and like the Parker one has so many listens to because he's in a gigantic band. So it's like
And he doesn't do that. Like he doesn't do the podcast tour.
Oh, I think I'm the only podcast he's ever done.
Ever. Wow.
Ever.
Okay.
It's only
because when I saw that was like an instant download straight to listen immediately.
I think I'm the only podcast that he's done, and I think the reason he was cool with me is that I'm good friends with Harry, from No Pressure and like Regulate and stuff, and he knows Harry, and I'm good friends with AJ, also in No Pressure, maybe unofficially, but and Body, like all the people that were in No Pressure are people that I grew up playing with. So he's kind of like, I think he kind of was like, I know that these guys are really cool with that guy, so like he's probably chill and everything. He don't live too far from me either. But yeah, I mean, so it's like that one, the trajectory of that one is really crazy. It's like not far and away more listened to than the others, but the time frame that was recorded this past year,
Right.
and it's already superseded stuff that was recorded in like year one that would have had time to aggregate
Right.
listens.
That's always super interesting to see. Like, oh, like, and sometimes I forget because I'm like, oh yeah, like the numbers for this episode are doing pretty good, and then I realize I'm like, oh, I only put this out 2 months ago,
yeah, that's
and then
always
I'm
like a
like, what's
weird.
the year lifespan of this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like if I were to like look up the top 5 right now, it's like so. Well, this is interesting. I guess I'm kind of happy about this. I would be a little bummed if the most listened to episodes were just within the first year, because that would mean that people just it's like the only reason that they have a high download number is because of they came early,
Mm.
you know. But no, it's like I got like the top 5 are like episode 70, episode 21, episode 4, episode 34, and episode 27.
Do you
So
have the
it's
guest
like,
names? Oh yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
no,
You're
no, no,
saying the numbers based off
yeah,
to
of when they came out. So
yeah,
it's not like they all came at it like the same in
yeah.
the same order or
Right, right,
whatever.
right.
But it's Parker Cannon, Walter Delgado, Justice Tripp, Brendan Yates, and then Seb from Regulate. So and the Seb Regulate one, um, that one was like particularly special because it was during the riots. Those during George Floyd riots,
Mm.
and he was in Richmond, and those riots were particularly like they were particularly heated in Richmond, a city that's like 51% African American, and like, and so Seb had come down to kind of like like be a part of the protest and stuff like with me and like our friends and things, and so we talked a lot about we talked a lot about being like an African American and like and like his experience as like a person of color and stuff. I think a lot of the listens on that one are involve come with our conversation around that,
Right.
and I like to see that. I like to see like that the ones that get good listens are ones where there's like substantive like stuff being talked about.
Mhm.
Because I am happy to showcase people talking about you know their like real experiences. It's like, yeah, if somebody wants to come on and promote like a piece of music, that's fine. But it always means more to me when people are kind of talking about like their lifestyle, their experience.
Yeah, totally. Can I share my top 5 with you?
Go, man. I'm curious.
And I will say, because so it's different because I have the listens as well as the YouTube views as well.
Oh yeah, you got YouTube. How I do that? Yeah.
So for audio listens, Brian Garris, Colin
Makes
Young,
sense. Yep.
Brendan Murphy, Justice Tripp, and then Jay from Mind Force.
Brendan Murphy.
Counterparts and
oh yes, of course.
Yeah.
Jay makes a lot of sense. What was the last one?
Justice is just above.
Gotcha.
Jay.
Yeah, and it's like you get these like iconic like frontman type people, and of course, like that's what ends up being, being the move.
Yeah. So now, do you want to hear the video top 5?
Yeah. What's the video?
So Brian still number 1. So that's the only one that's the same.
Okay.
Next is Joseph from Tsunami.
Okay.
Next, Kat Moss. Cole Kakamoto from Gulch.
Yo, I'm gonna pause.
Sure.
There's something interesting about what you're saying. So that's 3 people that are from a similar area. These are all people I see and hang out with around the Bay and stuff. Their fan bases are distinctly young people. This, if you think about it, it's like Tsunami fans, Scowl fans, Gulch fans are the younger contingency of hardcore.
Right.
So it's interesting that their preferred format is a different format than just audio podcast.
Yeah, because if we jump back to the audio, Jay just like I don't think Jay. I'm just scrolling. Jay's not even top 10 for video.
Exactly. Mind Force has younger fans, but they also have a contingency of like, those guys are older.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got fans that are older,
Yeah.
And they started a little bit before the Gulches and the Scows and the Tsunamis, like by like a few years.
Right.
Maybe even more than I think. So that is so. What was the fifth one? What was the last?
Isaac from Knocked Loose. He's been on twice, but the first time, like the second time, it is only like maybe a month ago.
It's very recent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
that is fascinating. That's the kind of shit that I like to see. Like I like to learn about too. That is fascinating. Okay, very interesting.
Yeah.
Have
you thought about doing like a video version of Form, or you're like, that is a beast I do not want to tackle?
Kind of a beast I don't want to tackle, to be honest. I will admit my own kind of laziness there. Well, but also it's like the approach you gotta do when you're doing video is just so different too.
Oh,
it's like it's like so also some people I interview are like talking to Bruce when I'm setting up that interview, he's like, yo man, I'm not good at tech. Like he's like, asking, can I do this from my phone? I was like, yeah, but I'm working with some people I end up working with, they're not like video people.
Right.
Like, and they've kind of been like explicit. They're like, yo, I don't gotta be on video for this, do I? Like, it's like they're down to talk, but and then if I made that the thing where I gotta do that for every episode, then that means that there are certain people that like I gotta
immediately are out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm fine doing it the way I'm doing it. And God bless Hardlore and you for doing, for doing YouTube and shit. I've never done this. I thought about just putting the audio on YouTube, but I don't know.
I think you would be surprised that actually does work.
Oh no, I think it does. That's the thing, is we've just been lazy. It's like me and Sam, the engineer, we literally have talked about this like 20 times. We're like, yo man, we gotta do YouTube. And Sam's like, yeah. And then we just go off on a different subject. But now that we're having this conversation, I'm gonna be like, Sam, 2023, start the year off, start uploading this shit to YouTube.
Because talking about the behind the scenes, all the YouTube algorithm cares about, like, you can say audio only, but as soon as you put Brendan Turnstile, that is hitting so many people's searches.
And more people use YouTube than listen to podcasts.
Yes.
So, I gotta do that shit. I'm being, and another podcast I was on told me that, Angel and Z, they had on Ezek and they said, oh, we just posted a little clip of him talking on YouTube and the numbers spiked like crazy. And I was like, God, I need to do that.
Yeah.
So
I want to give them a quick plug because they helped inspire my process to change a little bit. Cool. Not on the entire like the actual like visual side or any of that, but and because it worked on me, so I was like, okay, if it worked on me, it will work on other people. But Seb from Regulate was on their podcast, and it was like great episode. That episode prompted me to reach out to have him on the podcast.
He's a great talker. He's a great conversation.
Great dude. Insane backflip king.
He had hit that shit. Damn.
Yeah. But for them, because they film their podcast as well. But
they do.
At the start of it, they just had like a clip from This Is Hardcore where he's just fucking, grooving and doing his thing. And and that's what caught my attention. And I was like, damn, I need to do that, because just to see a talking head on your, like, if you are following hardcore content, you want to see live stuff, you want to see people going,
you want to see, yes, exactly.
So I was like, I think it took a little bit, but I was like, I need to do that going forward, where it's like the guest comes on, I just screen record a random thing on the internet that I find, and then just throw that in the first 5 seconds.
That's all you need to do.
And that has totally changed the algorithm game for us.
I need to. All right, you've convinced me. I'm legit gonna hit up my engineer and be like, bro,
it's video time.
We need to at least do just something on YouTube. So let's fucking do it. But cool. Cool. All right. Let's this is the third time someone's told me that I need to do it. So
if it's a hat trick, it's probably meant to be.
I gotta fucking do it. I gotta do it.
Ace, one of the last questions I have specifically about form.
Yes.
And this has come up with other friends of mine and is almost, and I'm sure has been used in a bit of a joke, is you like to capitalize certain genres when you're like really trying to describe them.
Oh yeah.
So capital H hardcore. You've used it in this podcast.
That's capital M metal, capital P punk, capital H hardcore. Yep. That is, and like where I got that from was actually kind of like punk people sort of talking shit about hardcore, but I like knew what they were talking about. And I personally tried to like not absorb that into my vernacular, but it started like finding its way in there and like was the best way that I could describe like what I was talking about, because it's like you listen to like a band like we'll go in the modern sense, you know, a band like Spy and a band like Gridiron are technically both hardcore bands, but like they are very different from one another.
Right.
And like the capital H thing helps me describe a band like Gridiron than it does a band like Spy or like a band like, I don't know, like a Public Acid or something. So I started using that, and that kind of became my like my phrasing for like describing the fast pitch or like the typical version of whatever a genre was, because I love genre play and I love like categorizing stuff and what have you. So like capital P punk, it for like in my head is like something like a Rancid or like like it's like this is a punk band, but you can't describe it as anything else other than like a punk band. It's not even a hardcore punk band. Whereas like capital H hardcore, that's like a downfall, like a combust, like a like just straight kind of like down the middle hardcore without being punk. And then capital M metal I use as metal is so crazy that like it's like there's not like a like what metal is right now could be like a myriad of things. It's more I use that kind of more to describe like a show.
Sure.
Capital M metal is like you're going to see like Gate Creeper Obituary like Undeath tour or something. Like that's you're at a capital M metal show.
Right.
So it's just it helps me just like describe things. And I originally like just was really resistant to like using that because I legit think it was like I originally heard it from like punk kids like being like, oh, that's like some capital H hardcore stuff. I'm into hardcore punk. I'm into like like I don't like that kind of thing. But I was like,
so it was almost a demeaning thing, but you use it in a descriptive way now.
Yes, precisely.
Very interesting. So
I think
I want to put this theory to the test.
Okay.
So if you close your eyes and you think of the word hardcore.
Okay.
HARDCORE.
Yes.
All lowercase hardcore. Tell me the first band that comes to your mind.
All lowercase?
All lowercase.
Oh, so you see, making it lowercase just completely changed.
We're gonna.
So it's crazy you did that because I did when the first band I was thinking of when you were saying like, what do you think when you think of hardcore? But I had the capital H up and it was like Madball. But now that you've made it all lowercase, it's like hoax.
Okay.
Like it's something that's like more like all lowercase hardcore. I'm thinking like more like it has a more like punk feel to me.
I just want to say for the audio listeners, Ace was actually closing.
My eyes are closed right now, envisioning this.
Yes.
So, like all lowercase. I'm thinking like a band like Destruct or like stuff that's like on like the kind of like the 11 p.m. records kind of thing, like for like the old school like Grave Mistake records, like stuff that's like that is it's playing in like a warehouse somewhere, like kids aren't they're not like kickboxing. It's like it's like more like push mosh running around kind of thing. But my eyes are open now for audio listeners. But for capital H, I'm like, oh, it's like Madball. It's like cold as life. It's like regulate. It's like a tsunami. That's like capital H. Like hardcore to me. And it's like, yo, I like it all. So it's like, at the end of the day, I don't really fucking care. It just helps me to describe something as kind of like I would describe like a color,
Yeah.
Of something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you know what? Everybody listening, feel free to use that. If you need to describe something to somebody, feel free to pop off on that. It's you get my approval.
Have you ever used all caps hardcore?
Oh shit. Dude, whoa, dude, you just kind of blew my mind there.
Well, you said tsunami,
okay.
and now I was gonna ask that. I was like,
tsunami is a good example of all caps hard. Okay, so we got a new one now.
Yep.
All right, all caps hardcore. Yeah, tsunami is that. Gridiron is probably.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
I think to be all caps hardcore, you have to have like a kind of like an air of ridiculousness. There's gotta be like a level of being over the top to be all caps hardcore. Like God's hate is maybe not all caps hardcore, but if they were like a little more like ridiculous, maybe they would be. But no, they're just like capital H. Shit, all caps, fucking like not maybe. Pain of Truth maybe like jumps over kind of across the line like a little bit.
There are definitely Pain of Truth songs that are, but not.
Yes.
I don't think it nets.
You got it. I don't think it's the whole thing, but I think they're like the Test is kind of an all caps hardcore song. Right. That's an all caps hardcore song, but they're not completely all caps hardcore. Mm-hmm. Okay, well now I'm gonna start using.
Well, after this call, I know that Ace will bust out the notebook and write in all caps all the all caps hardcore bands. Feel free to comment the all caps hardcore bands that you love.
Send us all caps hardcore. Like I feel like Enemy Mind, like like the crazy like Pittsburgh stuff is like all like maybe like Irate is like all caps. Yeah, I'm gonna be. I got my work cut out for me for the rest of the evening. All caps,
man,
hardcore.
I'm glad that was literally the full circle moment for the pod. Ace, a couple last questions.
Yes, sir.
I end every episode with this question with every guest. Mm-hmm. A Mosh related story off the top of your head. Could be wholesome, could be gruesome, could have happened to you or you just saw at a show.
Okay. Well, as I am a zealous mosher, I am even at my tenured age, I am still very active out there. I got a lot. But I will give you one that happened to me. Let's see. This is Philadelphia, 2012, I think. There was a Joe Hardcore benefit show. He'd been arrested for something. I can't remember. But I went up there for that. And the lineup was just like made for me. It was like Floor Punch, like I want to say maybe like I think like Face Reality played. God, I'm trying. Wrong Side. I'm a big Wrong Side guy, so it was like they played. And I think Pegasus played. And maybe like a local Philly band was on there. I feel like I'm forgetting one other, but I remember Floor Punch and Wrong Side specifically, and that's the important. Those are the important ones on it. Here's why. So Floor Punch is my favorite hardcore band. And like just love them. It's like their records are perfect to me. It's like what I want to hear. It's what I've always wanted to hear. And then I was like, oh, great. I have like, I think the only other time I'd seen them at that point, a friend of mine had gotten knocked out during their set in Richmond, and it had straight up made his brain like reset in like a bad way. So like where every 5 seconds he would be like, "Yo, what happened to me?" And then we tell him, and then like 5 seconds later he'd be like, "Yo, what happened to me?" And we were like, "Oh fuck, we got to get you to the hospital."
Right.
So I had to like leave during that, like maybe towards the end of that set when that happened to him. So this time I'm like, all right, round two, gonna see Floor Punch. It's gonna be fine. Like none of my friends are gonna get fucked up, and I'm gonna see it, have a good time. So wrong side's playing, and somebody hits me in the jaw, like by accident, like up front. Yo, I have blacked out a lot of times in my life from being hit in the head. And like adrenaline kept me awake. And like I start to feel weird after I got hit. I'm like, why do I feel strange? And I'm like walking around the venue after the wrong side set. I'm like talking to people, and I'm like real foggy. I'm like, why am I feel like I'm having like weird conversations with people. Then I'm standing in the middle of the room and I go, oh, I'm about to black out. Like I know that that's it's a delayed effect. Like
Right.
adrenaline is worn off and I'm about to black out. So I go to run to the side of the room to like sit down or lay down or something. I do not make it. And
You're blacking out in the pit.
oh well, there's during this is like wrong.
Oh,
side's
this
over.
is the in between.
In between
before
bands.
Floor Punch. Okay.
So I wake up to people like carrying me to like a stairwell. I had fallen on my face, like busted my chin open and cracked a bunch of my teeth. And not a bunch, like a couple. And I'm like in the side of the room and I'm like, damn. Fuck. And I'm like, I definitely need stitches. My teeth are cracked. I'm like, oh, like, is this a dream, man? Like, this fucking sucks. And I'm like, fine now. Like, cognitively, I'm like back. So I then proceed to watch Floor Punch holding like my like a bunch of like paper towels against my chin, like to like stop the bleeding. And I can't mosh, I can't stage dive. And I'm just like watching, and I'm like, fuck, dude, like this is awesome, like great, and like I ended up, going to the hospital, get stitched up afterwards, and I was like, damn, like fuck, dude, it's a bummer. Like I didn't get to fucking like rock to, like them or whatever. Um and yeah, I mean my friends like, like one of the dudes I'm in MAD with was like there with me and stuck by me and took me to the hospital, went home. But I was like, just remember, I was like, damn, the fucking second time didn't get like to witness like a perfect, Floor Punch set. Now I've seen them a ton of times at this point, and they've all been amazing sets. But yo, I kind of had bad luck with them a little bit because I think the last time I saw a Floor Punch, I had some kind of crazy headache during the like right before they're about to play, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna throw up. Like I can't mosh for them. And I got called out. Like Porter was like, yo, where the fuck is Ace in the middle of the set? Because he knows so much like their band.
Right.
And I just toughed it out. I was like, fuck it. I got a terrible headache right now. I'm gonna just fucking, get out there and get after it. But I was definitely trying to sit that one out.
It's like you would not be surprised if I went to this Floor Punch show and a bus just came out of nowhere and smoked me.
Dog, yeah. Like I think I've seen them just as many times where something bad has happened as not like for me. So,
it's a roll of the dice.
It's roll of the dice,
a flip
dude.
Of the coin.
If they I think they are playing again. I'm not going to be able to make it, but I feel like if I were to go to that show, flip of the coin or something, like maybe I get shots. Like who knows? Like But yeah, I got a lot of Mosh stories, but that is the one that I remember. And
have you had anyone from Floor Punch on form?
Porter's been on. Okay. Yeah, Porter's on. That was really a special episode to me. We had not really figured out the studio Wi-Fi at that point, so it kind of goes in and out a little bit, which is really unfortunate. But his stories are outstanding. I mean, he was like a guy that was like around for CBGBs. around for like the 90s stuff, around for a lot of stuff in the 2000s. Like that dude is still in it, man. Like, and just like has just seen and done a lot of really cool shit.
Yeah.
He has really interesting stories about or if y'all go back to that episode on Forum, he has a very interesting story about almost being in the World Trade Center during 9/11.
Oh, wow.
He was working there. He was working there and like took off that day or something. Like that. Something like crazy like happenstance type deal. But yeah, so that's my Mosh story.
Yeah, I'm glad that you got someone on, because if anything, it's almost like they owe you a podcast.
Oh, no, I owe everything to that band. Like Breakaway was basically a 4-punch tribute band. Like they're one of my mom got me the Twin Killing CD when I was like in high school, and like that was like really pivotal for me. I tip my hat to them. But yeah, no, I mean having Port Arm was badass for me.
Yeah. Ace can stand a headache or two.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, dude, this has been, I think we've gone the longest out of any guest for this season.
I'm a fucking talker, dude. I'm sorry.
Like, no, it's all been really, really great, and I think rightly so. When two hardcore podcasters get together, like shit can go for hours. I'm sure we could talk for another hour if we really wanted to, and
absolutely.
Maybe we'll just need to do a part 2 in the future.
Just anytime you want, man. We'll come on. We'll do it.
All your links to Forum, to Mad, to you will all be in the description in the show notes.
Cool.
Anything you want to shout out, anything you want to plug, or anything you want to send the people off with. The floor is yours.
No, man. Just like, like if y'all like that, the MAD record, if you like Ascension, pick one up from me. At the Mutually Assured Destruction Big Cartel. That's just mutually assured destruction.bigcartel.com. I still got some special copies of some special edition band copies on that one. I just selling records is really special to me. So like it's like that for whatever reason that means more to me than just like a shirt or something. So if you don't have a copy yet, hit me up. If for whatever reason the rates look a little like high for like getting it over the border, if you're in Canada or something, just message me. We'll figure we can figure it out. And yeah, I mean, if you're in the States and you're in the Mid-Atlantic or what have you, follow the page I run for hardcore shows in Richmond. That's at Richmond Hardcore Shows. And kind of like see what's going on there. I run that and everything. And yeah, check Forum out. Got a lot of episodes. Find some people on there that maybe you don't know, maybe that you haven't heard on Scoped, and dive in there. But mainly just anybody listening, if you like pay attention to any of the shit I do, go to the shows I set up. Then I just appreciate you. That's really it. Like, I am fortunate to have been doing this and being involved in hardcore and punk and metal for like 18 years at this point. So and the fact that like people still, engage with me and engage with things I do really means a lot. And I hope they never stop. And because I'm gonna keep doing it regardless.
Right.
And it's awesome. And I just like, I'm very appreciative to be able to do things I do. All 5 billion of the things I do. So thanks for having me on. Appreciation to you. And I just a tip of my hat to everybody that is listening right now and paying attention. Thank you guys.
Yeah. It's always a shout out to the people that are listening right to the end of the 2-hour podcast. But yeah, Ace, you gave me a lot of inspiration, a lot of things to think about. And if anything, I know that I'm not alone in thinking that I have too much shit and I need to be okay with not having too much shit on my plate. So I'm sure that's something that we will talk in the DMs for days to come. But dude, thank you again for coming on the podcast. This was really fun.
Of course, brother. Stay safe out there, man. And look forward to listening back this one and whatever everything else you got going on this season.